the EPRA revised the price of petroleum products in the middle of the duration that they should have.
Right.
Are they revising that again? I wonder. You know, they always do this on the 14th so that the new fuel prices take effect on the 15th. But now, just before that, at the beginning of the month, I don't know, KRA did what, I don't know, so they had to revise this, price of petroleum, so things changed. You know, all those things.
So
Anyway,
wait and see.
hata mkiuza 10,000 tutaweka gari mafuta. Shauri yenu. Welcome to the show. Nduh Okoh, good morning.
Good morning, Eric Latiff.
You're looking all radiant today.
Why, thank you, sir.
So yesterday that was purple.
No.
Now today this is purple or pink.
I didn't wear purple yesterday.
It was the day before. It was the other day.
Yes.
The other
was the
day.
other day.
The other.
It was yesterday of the day before.
The other day before.
Yes.
Okay, so what are the colors?
There's a little bit of everything, isn't it? There's aqua, there's mauve,
Aqua.
there's red. This is indigo. Remember you were looking for it the other day? This one. Not this is aqua.
Okay,
this
where
is
you
indigo.
I can't see where you.
Okay. This is indigo. This is aqua.
Hey. Okay. Sit you money, huh?
Indigo.
And aqua.
Stay with me. You'll never walk alone.
You see, there's what I've realized that anytime we talk about colors, for me it's a learning experience. Because the only color I recognized there was red. Then indigo I've also heard of. Aqua, I know
Mauve?
has to do with water. Mohu?
Mauve. M-A-U-V-E.
There's a color called mauve.
There is. What color is your shirt, CT? What are the colors that comprise your shirt?
Different shades of purple.
It's no purple there.
Those are purple. Those are not browns.
Oh, wow. Your shirt is purple. Eric's shirt is purple. You've got some burgundy there, a little bit of lilac.
Okay.
Do those colors know that they exist?
They themselves.
I think they do. It's simply opening our horizon to just the variety. You know, we started off with red, blue, yellow, green. So, yes.
Primary colors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then everything now moves from there. Indigo I've heard of. I am not even sure what it looks like. Purple I know. Pink I know. Red I know. Burgundy sounds like alcohol.
Mauve.
I know it's a name.
Mauve actually is the name too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mauve.
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 Yes.
It's a color as well.
I wasn't
Mauve.
sure it was a
It's
color.
mauve in color.
Then the shades of black. I know there's gray. Yes. Now, when we move from there, let's say that my capacity is a bit limited.
Okay.
But I also know orange.
You know orange. Orange is
And yellow.
Yellow, I know. I was in Yellow House in primary school, so I
voila.
should know.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Welcome to today's show. We will discuss a number of issues today. One of them is revisiting the ICC, Kenya's unfinished business with the International Criminal Court. What's happening so far? Is the prosecutor still considering some things about Kenya? Did we make any attempt at securing justice for the victims of the 2007 post-election violence in any manner, shape or form? Is there any need to review or relook that, or should we just say, okay, that happened, we apologize, it was a bad moment for our country, let's just move on, let's learn our lessons? But the people who suffered, we also tell them, you know what, poleni, just makosa ilifanyika.
Accept and move on kind of thing.
And move on. We shall be discussing that this morning, plus other things. But let's begin with COVID-19.
Okay, so seems that some things are happening in the country, right? With an increased number of cases over the last 24 hours. Out of a sample size of over 5,000, over 5,200, Kenya recorded the highest number of cases that has been recorded in the last 3 weeks. 604 new cases and 10 deaths in the country yesterday, and things seem to be rising. If we look at numbers that we have been given, just kind of, to put things in a little bit of perspective, over the last 10 days, Kenya has recorded almost 3,000 new cases. And now the Ministry of Health talking about the fact that, look, we're asking people to be extremely careful. It would appear that everybody thought that, things were better now that things opened up, and then there was no need to be careful anymore. But that is not the case. Still saying, we need to be very, very careful. We're seeing heightened levels. We're testing more as well, it would appear. 5,200 is the highest number of tests also that has been done in the last 10 or so days. And this is what you find. Remember, we'd always said that if more testing was done, you'd actually probably find out that more people have.
Are we doing more tests per day, or are the results of combined number of days coming in batches of 5,000?
Well, I mean, look at it. Look at it that over the last 24 hours, the day before, they did 2,300 tests. Now, when you're counting
they announced results from some 2,500 samples.
Yes.
Not necessarily taken in 24 hours. That's what I'm asking. Because we know that some of these results come 10 days after they were taken. And we are not talking about all the results being of 10 days ago. There are some that are being announced today that were for 10 days ago, others for yesterday, others for 7 days ago. So we still cannot tell exactly how many have been done in a day.
No, we don't know how many have been done in a day, but if you're going to take that information and then use that, then it should be a little bit more worrisome then to say that if 10 days ago or 5 days ago, these are the numbers that you are finding from a compilation of all of these tests, and you don't even know what is happening currently, then it should be an eyebrow-raising moment. They can say, okay, if this is what was happening 10 or 5 days ago, and this is the collation of those reports, then we don't even know what the situation is on the ground currently, if that's what we're going to take. And it should be something that should get people saying, okay, well, if we don't know what the current situation is, then that's a problem. Okay? We have, if we're looking around, and that's just for Kenya, and we'll look into those details a little bit more later. But now if we're looking around the world, a number of countries telling their citizens that we need to be a lot more careful about what is going on. France has become the latest European country to toughen anti-coronavirus measures, imposing a curfew in Paris from 11 p.m. and 8 other cities around the country from Saturday. So on Saturday, they imposed this reintroduction of lockdown and then instituted a curfew which had not been in place for at least 3 months in the country. And Saturday, other countries such as Marseille,
Bless you.
Nice, basically across the country also had shut down. Countries like Germany, Ireland, Switzerland, Spain, Italy are also ramping up their restrictions because they are seeing heightened cases, reports of COVID-19. If we look at the cases now in France, just as an example of what they recorded and reported yesterday, France now had 22,591 new cases and 104 deaths yesterday. And these are the reasons why Macron said initially, look, we don't want to go back into lockdown. We don't want to shut down things. But from what we are seeing now, it's like we have to. And this is when this curfew was then imposed. And we're probably going to see other countries following suit with the higher numbers that are being recorded and reported. So this is what's going on around the world. The United States also continuing to rise there. India continuing to rise. Took a beating yesterday as well with 200,000 new cases on the subcontinent. And Brazil also raking it in those high numbers, guys. I mean, what were they looking at yesterday? 26,675 cases with 716 new deaths alone reported yesterday. So, I mean, second wave in some countries, looking at maybe having let the guard down a little bit too soon, a little bit too early, but this is what we're seeing now, and it seems to be the case in quite a number of countries.
Seems like it's going to be a Christmas behind locked doors.
Let me ask this question. When you're looking at the numbers of COVID infections in the world, what are our numbers right now?
Kenya's numbers?
No, World,
World numbers. Okay, so around the world, you're looking at almost 40 million, right at 38 million, excuse me, 38,734,804.
okay.
That's the number around the world.
And in the US?
In the US, 8 million cases, 8,150,000.
Okay. So if you actually look at the figure, the number that we have in the world, you could argue that the US is contributing very significantly,
Absolutely.
as is India.
Three countries are contributing almost 50% of the world's cases, and that is US, the USA, India, and Brazil. They're contributing 20 million cases. Okay? And the world has 38 million cases. So just over half of the cases are out of three countries.
What I consider scary is the attitude that I see because of the campaign season in the US. There's a complete disregard by the president, his entourage, and the whole spectacle of campaigning has put all these safety measures that people keep talking about around the world into complete disarray. And we are seeing the numbers rising. It's not as though we are seeing this and the numbers are going down, so you can argue and say, but look.
The numbers are going down.
No, the numbers are not going down.
Exactly.
The numbers are actually shooting up. I'm saying this because here in this country, there is talk that COVID has ended. And that is false. It is not true.
It's not true, and it's a dangerous stance to take, actually.
It's deadly. And it's being propagated, and people believe it. I was talking to some people back in the rural areas. I spoke to people in the Kakamega area, some in Bungoma, some in Kisumu. Even as children have gone back to school, what many schools have tried to do is ensure that there is water. Masks.
None.
People don't wear masks. People don't wear masks when they're in public transport. People simply don't wear masks. And if you ask me, I think people cannot afford masks. But that's not the only story. It's coupled with people have gotten to a point where they don't really seem to care. Because when they look at the options, what options do they have? What options do they have? Because, these children going back to school, it's good that children go back to school, but more pressure has been piled on the citizenry. And this is a sort of pressure you can't actually run away from. And even you'll find that there's still debates going on between schools and parents.
Still, I mean, the debates are still raging in terms of how can we do this?
There are parents whom I spoke to who have refused to take their children to school until they know for sure what the school has done. Yes, and not one or two.
And what are they doing? Would you say that these parents who are saying we want to see what the school has done, if you actually look at how their families are, they are really taking these measures to heart?
I believe they are. Because I asked the question and said, okay, are you
children are not playing around and mixing with their neighborhood children,
I asked those questions, and they said that the thing that they've understood is the safety of their homes, because it is a controlled environment and they can determine what happens. Said, why they're worried about school is, one, they're reading what is happening in the country, and they're thinking of all these other children coming to school together, and they do not know what sort of circumstances these children were in before they came to school. They know their own setup. And they're saying, no, it's too dangerous an experiment for them to have. They'd rather their children just stay at home.
Okay.
Until this matter is sorted out. They'd rather the children stay at home.
I hope those children are not playing with the neighborhood children and that these parents are not then mingling out. And
I can't say I know the response to that, but what I do know is that for children to play with other children, it means that there are more children at home.
Yep.
But others may be at home, others may have gone back to school. Yes.
All right, 18 minutes after 6. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Let's take a break to see what's happening in the skies, and then we will look at today's proverb and the big headlines. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Chilled Spice.
Okay, Nairobi this morning is mostly cloudy at 16. The sun is trying to peek through those clouds, however. We go to a high of 27 today and lows of 14. Nyeri is cloudy at 15 degrees, going to highs of 26 and a chance of rains later. It's partly cloudy in Nakuru at 13 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 12. Mostly cloudy in Eldoret at 12 degrees, highs of 22 and lows of 11. It's 19 degrees in Kisumu at the moment, partly cloudy conditions. The sun's going to come out later though. Highs of 28 and lows of 18. Mostly cloudy conditions in Kakamega at 16 degrees, going to highs of 26 and lows of 15. It's partly cloudy in Mombasa this morning at 25, highs of 29 and lows of 24. Malindi is partly cloudy as well at 26 degrees. It'll rise to a high of 29 and lows of 25. Let's look at Kampala, where it's mostly cloudy at 18 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 18. With a chance of showers later on. It looks like thunderstorms in Dar es Salaam later. We know that the rains have been quite heavy here. Mostly cloudy at the moment, but the rain is going to come in early. Highs of 28 and lows of 23. Johannesburg is clear at 12. Sunny conditions will last through the day with highs of 27 and lows of 11. It's raining in Lagos at the moment at 29. This will be the high for the day, coming down to lows of 23. Let's look at Beijing, where it's afternoon in Beijing. Mostly sunny at the moment at 14 degrees, going to highs of 20 and coming down to lows of 9. Clear skies in London at 10, highs of 13 and lows of 7 and a chance of rains later on. It's partly cloudy in Paris at 9 degrees, highs of 13 and lows of 7. And we look into New York, where it's a warm night still. 17 degrees. It'll come to highs of 21 and lows of 14.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4
20 minutes
Spice
after
FM,
6.
Nairobi.
Biggest conversation. City Muga, just tell us today's proverb.
Well. He who solves a problem with a problem will always have a problem waiting.
Tell me about it.
The answer is a problem.
Let me repeat it. He who solves a problem with a problem will always have a problem waiting. Straightforward, isn't it?
Yeah.
1 + 1 is 2, + 1 is 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's look at the headlines. What big headline do you want to start with?
21 million broke Kenyans take a record of 245 billion shillings in Fuliza loans in 1 year. If you see a Kenyan on a phone, don't suspect they are merely texting. It's likely they're taking a loan. Every second, Safaricom processes 6 transactions every second, or 492,480 shillings per day. Okay, so if you're looking at the details of this story, that's headline, and it said that, it's in the business part. In the 2020 financial year, Safaricom disbursed loans amounting to 245 billion shillings through Fuliza. This is a growth of more than 10 times over the same period in the previous year, when Kenyans borrowed 29 billion, according to the company's latest sustainability business report. So 245 billion this year, as opposed to 29 billion in the last. Kenyans have in the recent past resorted to the overdraft facility to make ends meet in the wake of COVID-19. Overall, transactions stood at 392 million, up from 46 million in the previous financial year, with the number of customers registered on Fuliza now standing at 20 million, up from 10.7 million in 2019. According to the report, the traction that the popular facility had from its launch in January 2019 continued through the period under review, with strong growth in both number and customers and volume of disbursements. The exponential growth recorded on the facility charts the months away, and many Kenyans experienced disruption on their economic activities. So looking at the fact that, of course, during these difficult COVID times, more and more people were borrowing. Peter Ndegwa, the Safaricom chief executive, said the company has provided a crucial lifeline to subscribers following the outbreak of the pandemic. Big jump.
That's a heavy, heavy jump. Some good stuff for Safaricom. How does Fuliza work? You need to pay within a specific time. Is it 30 days or so?
I have no idea.
So that if you're talking about, it's how many days? 30 days, John? Yeah, within 30 days you've repaid. And then what happens if you don't repay within those 30 days?
They reduce your credit rating.
Yeah, okay.
If they
For what you
allowed
can
you
borrow
to
the
have
next time.
1,000 shillings, now they reduce it maybe to 600 or 700.
Okay.
And if your mischief is persistent, they reduce it further.
Oh, and if you receive any amount of money through your M-Pesa, it first goes to first charge is to repay
that one.
Oh, so they have an automatic way of recovering their money.
Not very different from the banks. Eh?
Okay.
Not very different from the banks.
Okay. So that means then that Safaricom is not saying it's non-performing debts are rising. It's basically saying that people are transacting a lot.
No,
more.
it's just
people
saying
are going
that,
there, borrowing, they're repaying, they come, they reborrow.
And still
Because when you're
borrow.
talking about almost 6 people per second
Yeah.
being processed, every second, 6. That's
That's a
huge
number.
Also looking at the jump of people who have subscribed for Fuliza by the close of the 2019 financial year, 10.7 million. By now, 20.8 million.
Yeah.
So an extra 10 million in the last 10 months. That's a high number as well. And yeah, it shows that people have taken this as an easier way of accessing
funds. It's quick funds. Look,
funds,
if you want to
quick
look deeper than the transactions and the technicality of it, it's quick funds that people need. And even if your credit is reduced, people are still borrowing even that. If I could borrow 1,000 shillings, right, and I failed to pay in the stipulated time, and then they reduce the credit, I'm still going and borrowing 800 shillings. You see? It's not like I've seen it's a penalty and I'm not going to borrow again. The desperation is still there and I'm still going to go back and get whatever I can. 800 shillings today, mischief continues, it's down to 600. I'm still going to borrow the 600.
You know, the beauty of this system, if you think about it, it's very much tied in with what many people need. They don't need 10,000, 20,000.
No.
100 shillings. That's what they need.
Yeah, you're going to buy something, you need to pay by M-Pesa, you Fuliza.
Yeah.
Clear the bill.
Yeah.
And Fuliza enables you to do that.
To do that.
Yes.
I'm also thinking about it in another way. Is it possible that Safaricom has merely gained an audience from people who were previously borrowing from the other platforms? Because we've still had we have Shylocks, we have the other mobile lenders that have had issues with regulation. And how then they chase the people who owe them. So it's also a possibility that Safaricom has over this time proven that it's a better platform to go to.
It's better in the sense that one, it is a platform that you can access, as in you can own the tool for that platform easily. Two, simply operationalizing it is not a complicated process. You have a line, you have a phone, that's it.
And from what I understand, even processing the loan itself, you're not going through anybody and you're not asking, bring this, that, the other thing.
It's right there.
It's straightforward because they have all your information.
Yes.
They know your habits or whatever, and they afford you whatever it is that is within your capacity. So you don't have to go to anybody. You don't have to ask for this, that, the other thing to be signed, bring 1,000 documents. It seems to be straight to the point. It's easy.
Actually, it's just between you.
It's you and them. Nobody
Full
else
stop.
is involved. Yeah.
Okay.
They fill the gap there, clearly.
But also, when you think of Safaricom, please ask yourself this question. Safaricom cannot function without a bank backing them. Where money is deposited, the people on whom that particular platform rests, that bank is doing extremely well.
True.
As a result of this.
The partners that they have.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
The partners are doing very, very, very well indeed. Yes.
It would be interesting to actually get deeper into this. Look at the profiles of the people who are now taking, look at their borrowing history, maybe from the other platforms. Have they been borrowing more? Are they paying? Are they repaying on time? Because you see, when we have a headline that says 21 million broke Kenyans are taking 245 billion shillings in Fuliza loans, then the other question comes, are they unable to repay or are they repaying? If they are able to repay, what are they doing with the money?
I would even
Is it
ask,
what kind of merchants are processing this these Fuliza loans? Is it at a shop, at a supermarket? Is it with a mama mboga? Is it because you just go and you're processing a payment, you do a fuliza, it pays. So at what it would be nice to get the extra data.
Safaricom, I'm certain, has this
They
data.
have it. Yeah.
Yes.
They have it because every time you transact, that data is just collected. Every time you transact, in whatever manner, and the manner in which you transact and whatever it is also documented.
Interesting to know. So let's take a break now, see what's happening on the roads, and when we come back, we will be looking at more headlines. Laban Tanui Kapte is locked. Kale Kamze Manu says he's in Zima. That's Zimmerman. Good morning, folks, from Masinga Dam today. This is Lawrence Carrier, our everyday listener, and also Collins Kimtaik is listening in. Our friend in Macha, Bedi Asli, is in. Kisumuki Boss, Geoffrey Muchama is in. Molly Yule Japan. Okay. And Abraham Lucorito, locked in. Good morning.
Next week on The Great Kenyan Bake Off.
Please, please. It is a race against the clock.
The bakers from Heat 1 are back.
Hey.
After having survived elimination, the stakes are higher. Catch the action as they take on Biscuit Week, facing a technical that will level the playing field.
It's too much work.
And a showstopper challenge that won't leave you hanging.
Just smile and wave, Kiran. Smile and wave.
The Great Kenyan Bake Off, brought to you by Unga Limited, inspiring a nation to bake.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Next week on The Great Kenyan Bake Off.
Please, please. It is a race against the clock.
The bakers from Heat 1 are back.
Hey.
After having survived elimination, the stakes are higher. Catch the action as they take on Biscuit Week, facing a technical that will level the playing field.
It's too much work.
And a showstopper challenge that won't leave you hanging.
Just smile and wave, Kiran. Smile and wave.
The Great Kenyan Bake Off, brought to you by Unga Limited, inspiring a nation to bake.
Okay, so unfortunately, this morning, traffic has already begun on Mombasa Road, and we're just going to tell it as it is, right? There's a trailer that's occupying half the outer lane just before the exit at the airport to town. So, seeing as everybody is going to town, this trailer being where it is obstructing traffic. And so now the traffic is backed all the way to the SGR. Forget the other traffic that is behind all these folks. The trailer is waiting for the gates of a particular warehouse to be opened. And this is why there's all that traffic behind you. One trailer, should it move, then maybe we will get this traffic moving. Okay, so that's what's happening in front of you, in case you're wondering. Just giving you that information, so just be patient, just a little bit. Hopefully that will move. The traffic is already building up, and it's building up all the way through to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. Huru Highway already is bumper to bumper, even now at 6:30. So we're going to have to keep an eye on this one. It looks like it's going to be a very, very busy Thursday. If you haven't left, what's ahead of you is traffic galore. The eastern and southern bypasses are open. However, not too much of a problem here. We're going to keep an eye on Thika Road. It's building up. Kiambu Road already is jam-packed. And this is what it's looking like. A busy Thursday already. So this one is going to need eyes open and wits about. Spice FMKE, let us know if you're stuck somewhere or if you find an alternate route, or text us on 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
27 minutes to 7. Let's continue with looking at the headlines. So, legal experts are saying that, yes, we need to review the Constitution, but please keep politicians away from this process. This was in an online discussion on whether the 2010 Constitution is serving its purpose. And discussants were in agreement that the country's supreme law has gaps that must be addressed. The panelists, former Attorney General Professor Nduh Okoh, Professor PLO Lumumba, and Nancy Baraza, the former Deputy Chief Justice, said that the Constitution has excesses that need trimming. For Professor Muga, for example, he's saying, let's look at representation. We have very many overlapping and replicated roles. We have so many constituencies. We have so many seats in the Senate representing the same people. So many seats called woman rep representing the same people. Very many replicated roles. Maybe we just need to review that. He says, we wrote this constitution without thinking of how we would finance it. If you look at Parliament, its size and number of commissions are unnecessary and expensive. Counties are a reproduction of the national government. You have leader of majority, minority leader. We even nominate members to meet the gender rule. We have a wasteful constitution.
Who said this?
Professor Nduh Okoh.
Okay. And where was he when this thing was being promulgated?
He was an advisor to the COE.
And he didn't know this.
He
then?
didn't take this matter forward at that point.
You realize things as you implement them.
10 years.
Surely, duplication doesn't require a certain profound or a certain depth of renewed understanding. Duplicate is double. Okay? The truth is that with the devolution, we were going to double these things. Now, what I don't understand is where is the harm? Because if you are actually going to devolve power genuinely, it means the very positions that you have at the national level, at some level, has to be duplicated at the county level.
Yeah.
It is understandable. It's like saying...
But do you have those? Must you have those numbers? Must you have 290 constituencies?
Yes.
What did we lack? What is the difference between the representation of the people now and the representation of the people in 2008, for instance? We had 210 constituencies 11 years ago. We have 290 constituencies now.
Let's stop and ask ourselves, at what point do we review the number of constituencies or these constituency boundaries? It's usually after 10 years?
We are only reviewing the boundaries. The Constitution has set that number. It's 290.
All right.
The only thing that happens in the 10 years when IEBC is just looking at, so this constituency called Njeri Town, where does it cross this river or does it come before the river? That's it.
All right. Let's go back to the very thing I'm saying. Who decided 290 was the right number?
Politicians participated very much in that.
Precisely. Precisely. Were they acting outside the boundaries of their roles? The answer is no.
Yeah.
But it's set. We can't go beyond it, isn't it?
Yes.
Unless there's an amendment to our Constitution.
Which is the argument now that these guys are saying. Now, if we review the Constitution, let's look at it. The issue of representation. So you have 290 plus an extra 45. All right? So every person is represented by 2 people at least.
Yes.
In the National Assembly.
Good thing.
Right? So is that serving us any better than if we had less? Can we reduce that? If we reduce that, would it reduce the cost of running our government?
So are we complaining about the numbers or are we going to complaining about the numbers vis-a-vis the cost?
We're complaining about the whole thing. The cost versus over-representation. Is there such a thing as over-representation? Can we have a linear representation that then works? Must you have 290, must you have 300 and something seats in Parliament? Professor Lumumba goes ahead and talks about, and remember when we interviewed him, he was harping on the same point. Why must we have 47 counties? Why did we get to the point of 47 counties? The initial proposal in the Boma's draft was 14 devolved units. Right now, the issue of BBI is talking about some regional governments above the 47 counties. Can we have fewer counties? That's the argument that he's raising.
Can we work on ensuring that these counties have viable commercial interests, have viable commercial direction, so that they can actually generate money? All the discussions boil down to, we don't have money to support this. There are too many. They're costing us. And those who can churn up the numbers will probably ask, okay, let's look at the cost of these entities that we have. And then let us look at some other costs that we have. The one cost that is understood because it keeps coming up and the Auditor General keeps bringing it up is the amount of money that we lose through unscrupulous means. Okay? Now, which is more expensive? And remember, these numbers also increase this other numbers.
Right.
Yep. They are a factor. The fact that you have 47 loopholes
It means
that you have a higher
there'll be
chance
more
of
functioning
losing.
loopholes and there'll be more opportunities for hemorrhaging, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. But have we ever addressed this one thing that keeps coming up? Counties do not seem willing, able to generate sufficient monies to even run their own affairs.
Which should be the thing. I mean, look, if we're going to be clear, it is that there should be some kind of at least adequate income generation at the county level. There should be things that you should be able to do per county that will then, so that whenever the state then does send money to you, it is complementary. And not that if the state doesn't send money to you, like we've been seeing now, you're crippled. You can't do anything.
But you see, the
you can't
state,
operate.
when the state is sending money to you, it's not that the state has gone and gotten money from from Arusha and brought it. It is money that has been generated in that same county. It's just it's looking at, so in Nairobi, how many people are paying taxes and levies and fees. So what is the Nairobi County collecting? What is the national government collecting? You'll find that it's the same people who are paying the same taxes.
It is the
So
same
you've
people
paid
paying
you've
the
paid
same
a parking
taxes.
fee to the Nairobi County, but you've paid income tax to the national government.
And then you've paid land rates.
And then you've paid land rates to Nairobi County. So even if you say that Nairobi County should be able to generate more, remember it has a limited number of functions.
Actually,
And then its capacity then to influence the economic growth and development of that area is also limited to the function that it has.
Actually, when I talk about the limitation, I am talking about something a little more simpler. I'm saying what the discussion about the capacity of counties to raise money, there's no discussion as to what they can actually raise. You see, when you're saying they raise 10 billion, okay, against what? Is that the limit of what they can raise? Is that a quarter of what they can raise? What is it? What is this figure a factor of? Now, when you start there, and then you ask yourself, if that is then the case, for instance, that the capacity is, say, 100 billion as opposed to 10. So you ask, so where does the 90 billion go to? Is it actually collected? Do we have a poor system of collecting it? And if it is collected, how is it that only 10% of it gets to the... Now, in my opinion, counties have the resources. The problem arises in this process and the means by which they actually collect and collate the monies that are within their boundaries. That's where the problem arises. What is collected and what the county then receives, two different things.
Right.
Two completely different things. And so long as that particular loophole is not closed, this discussion will just continue going. Our children will have it, our grandchildren will have it. It'll just continue. And with such a problem, the continuum is not going to be a betterment, so to speak. The situation will actually get worse. We'll be talking about infinitely worse things.
Yeah. Okay. So the Malindi MP Aisha Jumwa is now facing murder charges after the Director of Public Prosecutions approved charges against the MP. And it's a dramatic escalation for the legislator who's already on trial for corruption. Reports indicated last evening that Jumwa was required to surrender to the High Court in Mombasa immediately following the approval of the charges. When she was charged with graft on August 31st, Jumwa told journalists that she was aware the prosecution had approved the murder charges in respect to the October violence during a ward by-election in Ganda where a man was shot dead. So it's just raining and pouring for the Malindi MP.
Yep. When it rains, it pours, is what it would seem.
Yep.
Okay, so the KMA NEC has blocked the transfer of candidates, and it's being described as a storm. The Kenya National Examination Council has ruled out the change of examination centres for the 1.9 million KCPE and KCSE candidates. This all in line with what's happening education-wise, and it's termed as a blow. This as it emerged that many parents were transferring their children from boarding and private institutions to low-cost schools with manageable fees. Some parents have also transferred their children from schools they deem as congested to institutions with fewer learners to beat the social distancing challenge in containing the spread of COVID-19. KNEC says the registration process of candidates was complete, data validated, and candidates would have to sit the examination in their registered centres to avoid confusion. The reopening of public and private schools schedule says the 2020 KCPE candidates will sit exams starting March 22 next year. The 3-day examination will end on the 24th, just a day to the start of the KCSE exams that will last 3 weeks and 3 days. Marking of the 2 national exams will be spread between the 19th of April and the 7th of May. So if you had registered in a previous centre and then you changed the school, you cannot change your centre according to the Examinations Council. So it looks like a storm in the proverbial teacup.
So what is the justification? I'm not getting the justification.
They're saying that the data has been, the justification for you not being allowed to change your center, according to them, that all the data has already been collected, everything has been validated, and if they were going to now go into a process of changing centers, it would bring about confusion. Usually, as though there is no confusion already in this sector.
With our examination system, by the time we get to March, the latest time that this thing can change in a normal year is probably May, but special circumstances. That's when you can make changes.
In May for a November exam?
Yes.
Okay.
Latest.
Okay.
But what this also means is this, and when we say emergency, it means there was a something that is truly an emergency. But usually, fees for exams are paid when you are in Form 3. If you are in the primary school, it's in Standard 7. So that by the time you actually get into, and many schools, what they do is it's included in the fees. So this business of us chasing you or the school chasing you to pay doesn't happen. It's part and parcel of the fees. It's not a separate amount. So it is actually paid. Now, once that registration is done, remember it's done countrywide. I can understand the argument. Now, changing this becomes a bit tricky.
Why? Why?
No, I didn't say it is impossible. I just said it is tricky.
So this is what
it's only tricky if these guys are just being too rigid.
Given another example,
the exam is happening in May, next year.
Okay, let's start. First of all, the schools that have taken on these new students have to report because you have to give that data.
That's fine.
Then you've got to go to the database and say, okay, you know where the students are from, and all you do is change the centers, isn't it? Now, when you set your mind to actually moving forward, you're now being asked to sit back. Alterations, that's where the issue comes in. It is not that it is impossible. It's just bothersome.
But I think they just need to come to the reality of things.
Which is?
The reality of things is that very many why are parents changing their children from these schools?
Look at the example that one parent gave. I live in Nairobi, but my child studies in Kisii. I want to enroll her in a cheaper day school because I can no longer afford the high fees.
There you go.
There it is.
So, and the NEC is arguing that, okay, they can still go to that school, sit their exam, but their center will be that school in Kisii.
Yes.
Now.
So you want to do your exam, they will go to Kisii. Doesn't make sense.
No, you'll do your exam from here.
Yeah.
But
it will be collated.
Yeah, you'll be writing your index from the index number for the school in Kisii. And your result slip will show that you attended.
Let me explain. It causes a bit of a problem when it comes to marking.
Because of now trying to.
It causes a problem. Because usually when papers are marked, the batches are from schools. Everything is from that school. So when you record it, when you collate the details, is from that school. Now imagine a situation where 10 children move to different schools. So what are you going to do with the examination papers? You just think, it's not that it can't be done, but just think of the details of the bother it will cause.
It is easier for NEC to deal with that issue now. Open up the window and say, so for the next 1 month, let's go. Or for the next 2 months, even until December. it's all digital, isn't it?
It is digital. It is not manual.
So open it up and say, parents and school heads, you have the next 2 months until when are they closing? 24th of December. Until the 24th of December, if you're changing, register and say, even open a portal and say, this is where we are changing. And then have that time to reprocess.
It's possible.
Because the fact of the matter is that people have changed school, and it's because of COVID and the impact of COVID-19. I mean, it's
So, okay.
Talking of issues, page 6.
We need to take a break now.
All right, let's take a
12
break
minutes to
and
7
then
o'clock.
Get back to issues.
And then we'll come back to the issues. And as we take this break, let's remind you about the Gold Crown lactose-free milk from the new KCC. We've been talking about this. If you're lactose intolerant, you've been having issues with digesting this particular milk because of the lack of this enzyme called lactase in your system that breaks down the lactose. Ish.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Call me Professor, Abwana.
Excellency, Professor.
Very good.
Good job.
Yeah. So you can get this Gold Crown lactose-free milk from the new KCC. Now, here is the issue. You know, when you come up with a product like that and you say it's a lactose-free milk for people who are lactose intolerant, it is not exclusive to people who are lactose intolerant. If you take milk,
You can still drink it.
you can still take this one. That is lactose intolerant. The only thing is that you know it's lactose-free. Okay? So it's not exclusive to only people who are lactose intolerant. So you can buy this milk if one member of your family is lactose intolerant and everybody else is fine. You don't have to buy two different milks. Just buy this one and it's fine. All right? So today we are giving 2 gift hampers from the new KCC. And the question that we are asking is, what's the color of the packets of this Gold Crown lactose-free milk? What's the color of the packet of the Gold Crown lactose-free milk from new KCC? Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on Twitter. Is our man Amadioto in today? He is going to help us pick the winners from today. 2 lucky winners are going to walk away with the KCC gift hamper.
Spice FM, Malindi. Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
All right, it's now
done
9
right.
minutes to 7 o'clock.
94.
Speaking of issues, City.
Well, there was this drama of the impeachment or the attempts to impeach the governor of Migori. Page 6 of The Nation tells us ODM balks at Obado Oster bid, calls governor for talks. Let me just read one paragraph of this. It will make the matter clearer. The Orange Democratic Party has invited embattled Migori Governor Okoth Obado for talks at Chungwa House today, in what insiders say could mark the end of his impeachment bid. Sources close to Governor Obado told The Nation that the Secretary General Edwin Sifuna had invited him for talks this morning. Yes. Remember there were attempts.
Who's carrying the humble pie? Is it Sifuna or...
Well, it is the party, because they did try to use the channel of the county assembly. That wasn't going anywhere. They tried through the speaker. That now was going even more nowhere. Okay?
Nowhere.
Yes. So I think they have decided that perhaps a little conversation might be in order.
Let's talk.
But it opens up an interesting discussion. It's one thing about what the party wants. It's another what the people who are represented by this particular person want. Governor Obado is not unpopular in Migori. He may be unpopular with some individuals in his party, but in Migori, he is clearly not unpopular. Because if the ODM party, and most of the people who are county assembly members are members of the ODM party, if the party could not whip the body of the assembly to actually do their bidding, what does that tell you? Because they've been trying it. Remember when we talked about it when it began, the story was that the ODM top brass had gone and camped in Migori. They called meetings, another meeting. Then there's a little drama with the Speaker of the County Assembly. And should we say the drama has taken... This is a new episode.
Season 2.
This is season 2.
Okay.
Things fell apart.
Yes, this is now Obado at Chungu House.
Yeah.
Season 2.
What?
Let's see how this unfolds, shall we?
Yeah.
But this bespeaks in my mind of 2022. And individuals within the party who I believe want that particular seat
Yeah.
and who are using whatever influence they may have within their party to try and see if they can't get this gentleman out sooner. Well,
later.
let's wait and see how it unfolds, shall we?
Okay.
Yes.
So, according to a new report, children are key to the spread of the coronavirus, even though they are believed to be less affected by COVID-19. A study of more than 500,000 people exposed to the virus in India established that the role of children in the transmission of the disease may have been underestimated. The research published in the journal Science reported children are potentially much more important to transmitting the virus, especially within households, than previous studies have identified. Another case in point that we don't really know more as much as we should, because this continues to unfold daily. Kids are very efficient transmitters in this setting, which is something that hasn't been firmly established in previous studies, according to Ramanan Laxrinmarian, who was the lead researcher in this study. Scientists from Princeton Environmental Institute, Johns Hopkins University, and the University of California at Berkeley traced infection pathways and mortality of 575,071 who had been exposed to COVID-19 from 84,965 confirmed cases in India. And so it's said that children are super spreaders of COVID-19, and that it found that children between the ages of 0 and 14 and youth are more likely to catch the virus from their age mates and are more likely to spread it once they've caught it.
Wow.
Remember in Europe, one of the things that came up because of the aging population that is reported to be in most of Europe was this: the idea of younger children visiting their grandparents or staying with them. It was for this very same reason, understanding that, yes, you see, being infected doesn't mean you're unwell. No, being COVID positive doesn't mean you're sick. It just means that you have the virus and you can infect someone. And given the susceptibility of those who are older, there had been discussions around the fact that it is this association between the young and the old that also contributing to the spread of COVID among the elderly in Europe. Yes. So this discussion is simply continuing.
Yes, it is,
But
as it should.
And let me reiterate, COVID is real, it is here. This story of COVID not being there is a complete and absolute lie.
There's a story here on page 10 of The Standard. It's about this language that you tell us about, CT. So unajua hii lugha?
Ipi?
Si hii lugha ambayo sisi naongea.
Oh,
Father John Pesa and the art of speaking from both sides of the mouth.
hey!
So Father John Pesa is the head of which church again?
Holy Ghost Coptic Church. Jeez. He's the spiritual leader of the Holy Ghost Coptic Church.
All right.
Kenya
Voila.
or East Africa?
Kenya for now.
Holy Ghost Coptic.
Coptic Church, yes.
Ni church ni global. Sasa, Father John Pesa and other religious leaders went to Sugoi the other day, and it was covered, and there was, how the speakers spoke in front of the deputy president. So this one talks about how, for example, he started this story, referring to the deputy president as daktari. Tumeona daktari mbele yetu. Daktari wetu, tibu watu wako kwa kipole, weka sindano na uweke kwa pole. One. Then he went on now. This is where he shifted from the stories of, the analogy of the shindano and all. He went back into where he basically belongs, and this is the matters of the Bible. He said, nani anakumbuka mawe ya King Suleiman? King Suleiman alikuwa na mawe moja. Ilikuwa mawe moja na akagonga Goliath. Twa!
That is the gospel according to St. Goliath.
According to the Coptics.
According to St. Goliath.
According to Saint
Otherwise known
Goliath.
as Goliath.
Yeah.
So now, of course, he was corrected much later. I mean, nobody could tell him.
David.
No one could say that. So yesterday he calls a press conference. Kuna maneno moja yatageuka ati Suleiman ndio alipiga Goliath. Sasa mimi ni mzee nazeeka. Tangu naanza kusoma Biblia nimezeeka. Daudi ndio alipiga Goliath na mawe moja. Mimi sikusema nani Goliath. Maombi ni kama mawe, ndugu zanguni. Ninahuzunisho sana kwa watu wetu kugeuza maneno.
So the mawe they are speaking of is ile mawe ya jiwe.
Mawe moja.
That is very good.
Okay.
But the question I should ask is he communicating effectively?
To someone.
He is.
That there's someone who killed someone with a stone.
All these people who are contradicting him, were they there?
At the time of David and Goliath.
Yes.
How do they know that it was Suleiman?
Yes.
Suleiman.
These details, let's leave it that way. False.
All right. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Broadcasting from Nairobi to Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, and online, www.spicefm.co.ke and SpiceFMKE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. For the next 2 hours, from 7 to 9, we'll also be live on KTN Home. Good morning. It's now 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
Okay, guys, this morning traffic has gone all the way past Sabaki on Mombasa Road today. It's looking crazy. Athi River at the junction there are police that are stationed there at the Athi River Bridge, but the traffic, like we said, is all the way past Sabaki today, and that is looking crazy. It's stretching all the way then through to the JKIA turnoff, moving very, very slowly today. If that's the direction you're headed in, just know that that is what lies ahead. And then moving further on, as you head towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, again, moving very slowly. Uhuru Highway is jam-packed all the way through to Westlands today. Getting into the CBD, you might be able to make a quick sneak in, but it's going to take you a while. Coming off of Thika Road, as we look at the underpass at Pangani, not too bad, moving very slowly, but moving all the same. It's not a bumper-to-bumper situation yet. Where it is a bumper-to-bumper situation, however, is on Kiambu Road. And the lanes have multiplied already this morning, moving very slowly as you try to get to the junction. All right. Getting off of Langata Road also should not be too difficult. It's not a walk in the park either. As you get to the Timor roundabout, as you get to Bagathi, you'll be all right. Headed towards Nyayo Stadium is a different story. Spice FMKE, let us know what you see. If you're stuck somewhere, that's on Twitter. Or text us on 40127. We want to keep it moving. It is Thursday, getting to the end of the week, but traffic is already crazy.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This
Good
is
morning,
the
and how are you this Thursday morning, this 15th day of October 2020. Welcome to the second hour of The Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, and as we begin the hour, like we always do, C.T. Muga will remind us today's proverb.
He who solves a problem with a problem will always have a problem waiting.
1 times 1 is 1.
Yes, 1 times 1 times 1.
It equals 1.
You know, where this one gets tricky is you may not know that you're solving a problem with a problem. You may actually think that you are actually putting across a solution, and yet the solution stirs up a hornet's nest and creates more problems than you had anticipated. Nonetheless.
He who solves a problem with a problem will always find a problem.
We'll always have a problem waiting.
Will always have a problem waiting ahead. All right. So let's talk about a problem that we had in this country in 2007. Disputed presidential election leads to post-election violence. There has been argument, counter-argument, whether this was spontaneous, whether it was planned well ahead, whether it had a proper structure of planning and execution, whether it was just spontaneous people who were feeling, expressing themselves from what they saw in the post-election violence. We had the violence, we had the Peace and Reconciliation Accord, we had the decision at that point that we are going to review what happened, review the conduct of the election. We had the Kriegler Commission. Review the post-election violence. We had the Waki Commission. And we also decided to create now the other commissions that would ensure that we have peace and reconciliation in the country. And this includes the national cohesion and integration at the point. Now, with the Waki Commission, as we can all recall, when they released their report, they said, this is what we found. We would like to urge that our leadership creates a mechanism for local trials to happen so that there is justice delivered. But at the same time, as security and insurance, I'd like to send a sealed envelope to the International Criminal Court, to which Kenya is a signatory to the Rome Statute. So in the event this does not happen, then the prosecutor of the ICC will be at liberty to commence investigations, and we'll already have received some information from us which contains some information, some names of people that could be investigated. What happened? Don't be vague, go to The Hague. We went to The Hague. We saw what happened.
Stop being vague.
We stopped being vague. And the cases unraveled in the way they did. Do we still have some business with the International Criminal Court? There was a push of Kenya, just getting out of the Rome Statute altogether. There was a push for, reopening of some of these cases. There was talk by the prosecutor herself, Fatou Bensouda, and saying that this is what we're going to do again. So all this is still up in the air. As far as you're concerned, where are we in terms of seeking justice for 2007?
I mean, I think the question has come up very many times, is that was there case enough? Was the proverbial bull fattened enough, the calf fattened enough to present this case then at the ICC? And then looking at the way things unfold, was that people said, okay, so then all that ruckus, all of that hullabaloo, why did we go in the first place if it yielded nothing? Or was the fact that a case was presented then enough cause to show that truly there was something amiss? There was a rot somewhere that needed then to be exposed.
But did it actually yield nothing?
That's what I'm saying. Was the presentation of the case enough to show for something?
You see, if we were to suggest that it yielded nothing, then we would be saying that the cases are at an end. There's no continuation. There's nothing more to discuss on the matter. And I'm not sure that the cases are at an end. The fact that there wasn't evidence, does it mean, therefore, or there weren't sufficient witnesses, does it then mean that there really was no case to begin with? Because then you'd be saying that the gentleman who first led that charge simply involved us in some really heavy-duty drama. But
really heavy-duty time wasting.
Yes, but something odd happened with this case. Very many people who were slated as being witnesses either disappeared or died. So one has to ask, was it just sheer coincidence?
And then had that not happened, the overturning then would not have been the case. If these individuals had not been disappeared, then you would have had evidence, because these cases were thrown out in many instances for lack of said evidence. If these individuals had then not disappeared, then there could have been evidence that would have seen a totally different outcome from what we saw.
Yes.
Let's bring in someone who has covered this matter quite extensively. This is a veteran journalist, Tom Maliti. He is now a writer with the Open Society Justice Initiative. Tom, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Thank you very much for speaking to us, and welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you for having me.
I think let's start off from the very beginning, from the top here, Tom. Where are we with regards to the ICC cases?
They were terminated.
Or pursuit of justice at the ICC. Does it mean that there's absolutely nothing that the ICC is doing or could do or has the opportunity to do now with these cases?
At the moment, the ICC is focused on other cases. The Kenya cases are not live in that sense. Once the two separate trial processes were terminated, that was the end of the Kenya cases. And since then, the Office of the Prosecutor appointed experts to investigate how that office handled the Kenya cases. Those experts had a mandate where they looked at the early stages of the Kenya cases. So, in essence, they had access to the case file to see how the investigation was conducted. They had a look at how the pre-trial process was handled by the Office of the Prosecutor. And they submitted their report in February 2018. And in November 2019, the prosecutor, Fatou Bensouda, made public the executive summary of that report. And in essence, what the external experts, as they're called, because these are individuals who are not employees of the Office of the Prosecutor. Some of them may have been former employees, but they're in essence prosecutors with international criminal law experience. What these external experts said was a combination of what CT Muga and Nduh Okoh have just said.
So with the report that now came from these external experts and looking at how the Office of the Prosecutor handled this case, is there a leg to stand on for the Office of the Prosecutor now on how, if they were to decide to revisit the Kenya case?
That would depend on whether they would be able to get any witnesses who would be willing to talk to them. But judging by past experience, that is very unlikely. It is significant that in the Kenyatta case, even before it went to full trial, so the Kenyatta case was terminated before they could actually have opening statements, before the prosecution could say, we have 10 witnesses, 20 witnesses who are going to speak to what we believe are the crimes that are alleged to have been committed by Uhuru Kenyatta. Before that stage, the prosecution terminated the case. And before the prosecution terminated the case, or rather, prosecution withdrew the case, and before the prosecution withdrew the case, a number of the witnesses said, yes, I said I'm going to testify, I said I would testify, but now I can't. The atmosphere in the country is not favorable to me, and I will not be able to testify. And that was significant because then, in that particular case, it wasn't even a situation of whether witnesses were being intimidated or anything like that. They just felt that we're being asked to testify against an individual who is now the head of state, and they didn't see how that would be favorable to them.
It wouldn't be the first time that something like this has happened. I mean, not just in Kenya. I mean, looking at witnesses around the world who may have been called in to perform a similar duty, and for fear of what would be happening back home in their country, then would say they didn't want to participate. How would that have been mitigated? In other cases, how would they have been helped in terms of protections?
It's a challenge because the one weakness of the ICC system is that the ICC is dependent on the cooperation of states. What this means is, for instance, if the ICC has identified a witness to testify in a particular case, or let me put it this way, once the Office of Prosecutor has identified a particular witness to testify in a particular case, and then they find that this witness needs to be protected and may be moved either in the country that they're living in or to another country, then they have to work with the existing authorities and the existing agencies. The ICC does not have its own witness protection program, in the sense that it has the legal instruments to be able to move a witness from country A to country B, and in country B, perhaps give that witness a separate identity and things like that. It has to do that with the say-so of the different countries, of the particular country where this witness is going to be relocated to. And then the other challenge is the individual themselves. It's one thing to talk about a witness protection program, but a witness must adhere to whatever restrictions they may be required to adhere to in the witness protection program. So, to give you an example, in the Ruto and Sang case at the ICC, one witness who was testifying said, look, I kept on talking to my handler and said, I have a farm. There's a farm worker who has been with me for many years. And I need that person taken care of. I need to be reassured that that person, as much as I have now been, I am now under protection, and therefore I cannot contact that individual. I need to be reassured that this person who has been with me for a significant period of time is taken care of. And he said he communicated with the handler for a month or more, didn't get any feedback. So the individual said, okay, whatever you guys want me to do is not as important as my relationship with this farm worker. And so this individual got out of the protection program, and this is testimony in court. So this is one testimony. So this individual said that he got out of the protection program, went to make sure that this farm worker is taken care of, and then went back. And of course, that introduces all sorts of elements of risk, because now individuals in that area will know that Fulani has now come back. So Fulani was away. Why was that person away? We don't know the details of what conversation this person had with their farm worker. And therefore, then they returned back and continued to be a witness for the OTP. So these individual relationships, which vary from person to person, from culture to culture, can also affect the protection program that a witness may be in.
What came of the investigation that you mentioned that was set by, was it called Bensouda? Yes. What became of that investigation?
It was concluded, and by the time Fatou Bensouda was making public the executive summary, so publicly the entire report has not been seen. But the executive summary of that report was made public in November 2019, and the external experts, in essence, indicted the Office of the Prosecutor. Key highlights are, they said that, yes, there was an investigation. Yes, people came to Kenya to seek evidence, but the prosecutor at the time, Louis Moreno Ocampo, was not interested in them following the evidence and then framing a case based on the evidence. They say that Louis Moreno Ocampo decided that there are certain goals that they need to meet, and they need to look for the evidence to match those goals. And when his staff members raised their hands and said, "Excuse me, sir, maybe we need to look at this differently, because of course we need to be presenting the best case possible." The external experts say that Luis Moreno Ocampo shut down such dissenting voices. This report is based on interviews with 30 serving staff members of the Office of the Prosecutor and former staff members of the Office of the Prosecutor. So it's quite extensive. And this is not to say there wasn't evidence, number one. Two, this is not to say that the investigators did not investigate, did not get evidence that could warrant a case. But this is just to say that the decision to prosecute did not look at whether the best case possible was available. And this could be a factor of taking things for granted. It is unclear, without having seen the full report, why there was this push, but it's clear that, as Eric Latiff mentioned, the Waki Commission that investigated the post-election violence came up with its evidence. What we know is the Waki Commission said that they identified 15 individuals who they believe may bear the greatest responsibility for the violence that followed the December 2007 election. And they also had evidence to back that up. But the Waki Commission was very clear that this needs to be investigated because they were clear on their own limitations. Remember, the Waki Commission only had 3 months to investigate things.
Yep.
And they were not just looking at who are the suspected main perpetrators of the violence. They were looking at everything. So they were looking at, the people in the village who were the ones who were killing their neighbors. They were looking at police who were shooting protesters in the urban centers of the country. They were looking at the opportunistic violence that took place, because they did say that also happened, that criminals took advantage of the situation and perpetrated their own violence for their own ends and had nothing to do with fighting political rights or grievances that go back way in history. So the Waki Commission, aware of its limitations, said, we came up with some material, but now this needs to be looked at with a professional eye and determine whether actually this material backs what we think are our conclusions. So when receiving this material, Luis Moreno Ocampo, the ICC prosecutor at the time, must have assumed that his work had been done for him, and therefore all he needed to do was confirm rather than verify and then confirm. And this is what the external experts say. The external experts say, yes, there was material that could start an investigation, that you could start an investigation with, but that material you could not conclude an investigation with. You had to go the extra step. And they say Luis Moreno Ocampo did not do that.
Now, Tom, I just have to come in here because if we're looking at the ICC and a court that was established independently from nations, then that maybe even took on this image of being sacrosanct, whereby you would say that you would not be able to then do things like hide information. You would not be able to ignore information, which is why states then were not involved in the process per se. So if all of this came to the ICC and then you have a prosecutor who is being said that maybe he wasn't really interested in going the extra mile, then you have to ask yourself the question, then what is the point? What's the point if you can then pick and choose on certain cases that are presented to the ICC and something like this, and then it's that a case would have been thrown out almost only on the decision of somebody not to go the extra mile to, as you say, verify and confirm? Then why? Why do this? Why go through all of this if at the end of the day it comes down to the willingness of one individual or a decision, which are some of the things that you're running away from in the first place when you go to the ICC?
Well, The short answer to your question is that the ICC is a court of last resort. So the idea that the ICC is infallible, the idea that the ICC can do it all, that is more a creation of us in Kenya at that time, where we invested a lot of emotion and a lot of hopes in the ICC. In essence, our expectations of what the ICC could do was extremely high, especially when the 6 individuals were announced as suspects in the case. And then I guess the failing there on the part of the ICC was not being able to manage those expectations, especially on the part of the prosecutor, not being able to manage those expectations well. I think the judges, when they had opportunities to speak and talk about particular stages of the case, the judges did take time to manage expectations, to get people to understand that this is a legal process and that legal processes can take time, number one, and that legal processes can have different outcomes. It's not just one outcome in a legal process. But secondly, the other thing about the case, as much as I've talked about the external experts, in essence, indicting Luis Moreno Ocampo, and just for the record, let me just say that he was given an opportunity to respond to the conclusion, and he did say that as far as he was concerned, he did the best job possible, that he did not take anything for granted, and that he was professional in handling the cases. That said and done, the other thing that we cannot ignore, and it's something that one of the panelists raised, which is witnesses were intimidated. And there were attempts to bribe witnesses, and some witnesses were bribed. This is public record. This is part of the court record now, and that also had an impact on the cases. As I pointed out in one case, witnesses refused to testify, not because they had been directly intimidated, but they just felt that the circumstances were such that were not favorable to them testifying. In the other case, they're pending warrants out for 3 individuals who are suspected to have attempted to bribe up to 6 witnesses. So it's a combination. A blinkered prosecutor, but also witnesses who may have had information and were compromised in one way or another.
Time for us to take a break now. We're speaking with Tom Maliti. He's a veteran journalist. He's a writer with the Open Society Justice Initiative. Looking at the unfinished business, we're saying the unfinished business with the ICC, but also the unfinished business in the pursuit of justice for the victims of the 2007 post-election violence. Where is that justice so far? Where do we have to go? 26 minutes after 7. The conversation continues on Spice FM on KTN Home. Time for a break. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru. Spice up your life.
Partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 16 degrees. We'll go to highs of 28 today and lows of 14. Nyeri is mostly cloudy at 16, highs of 25. Nakuru will see highs of 26 today. Partly cloudy conditions at the moment at 14 degrees. 13 degrees and mostly sunny in Eldoret. Will be rain in the afternoon with highs of 22 and lows of 12. It's mostly cloudy in Kisumu at 19 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 19. Partly cloudy at 17 in Kakamega with a chance of rains in the afternoon with highs of 26 and lows of 15. It's partly cloudy in Mombasa at 26, going to highs of 30 and lows of 25 with rains expected throughout the day. 26 and partly cloudy in Malindi, highs of 29 and lows of 25. It's 18 degrees in Kampala out of Kenya, 25 degrees the high and lows of 18 with a chance of showers later on. The rains will continue in Dar es Salaam for most parts of the afternoon. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 23 today. It's mostly sunny, and those sunny conditions will last through the day in Johannesburg. Currently at 12 degrees, the high will be 27. 29 degrees and scattered thunderstorms continue in Lagos throughout the day, coming down to a low of 23.
you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
The jam starts at the Garden City on Thika Road today, and it's moving very, very slowly as you try to approach the CBD. You'll get stuck right around the Utali Drift and then further ahead at the Pangani Underpass. That'll take you some time to get through. And then as you get to Ngara, it's also chock-a-blocked. Bumper-to-bumper situation as you try to get into the CBD via the overpass at the Globe Cinema. Okay, so that's what we're looking at now. The trailer that was causing drama on Mombasa Road that caused traffic all the way from Sabaki has moved and has entered into the compound where it was seeking entry, and so you can move ahead. However, the traffic that backed up because of this is causing problems on Mombasa Road, and it's still a bumper-to-bumper situation. That's what we're facing now. Jogo Road is also piling up as you approach the City Stadium roundabout. Talk to us, Spice FMKE on Twitter. Text us 40127. You're stuck somewhere or find a good route where nobody knows about. Tell us.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
It's almost 7:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Yep. It happens every morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. In the room is Eric Latiff, Nduh Okoh, and CT Muga. And joining us on the line is veteran journalist, writer now with the Open Society Justice Initiative, Tom Maliti. We're looking at the unfinished business with the 2007 post-election violence in the country. Tom, you've just told us about, what's happening now, what has happened since we saw the cases basically just collapse at the ICC. The issues that came out, the conduct of the Office of the Prosecutor, the tampering with witnesses, it raises issues also of the credibility of the ICC, doesn't it? In terms of, and if this maybe also lends a voice to those who are going around the continent with a political campaign against the ICC, saying it appears to only be looking at the end and then working to how to justify the arrival of that end, and saying the end justifies the mean. How would you say the credibility of the ICC then stands with regards to the handling of the Kenya cases? How is it that people would know who the witnesses are during this trial? How would they be interfering with witnesses and still not be able to, the court not be able to protect the witnesses or to stop this process? And even the report by the experts on the conduct of the Office of the Prosecutor.
Of course, it does speak to the credibility of the Office of the Prosecutor. I would like to differentiate between the Office of the Prosecutor and the International Criminal Court, because the International Criminal Court has judges and has other offices. I think the Office of the Prosecutor suffered damage, and which is why then the Fatu Bensouda, the current prosecutor, appointed these external experts to look into how those cases were handled. Because to date, the Kenya cases are the most high-profile cases that the Office of the Prosecutor has prosecuted. That, I think, is separate from, it's related but separate from the political campaign that was conducted, that is now muted, in which the line was the ICC is only targeting Africans and the ICC is biased and so on. And primarily that campaign was being conducted by African leaders defending their fellow leaders. Whenever this issue came up at the African Union heads of state meetings, heads of government meetings, they never spoke about individuals who are not leaders. So, for instance, as much as they would talk about, especially when the Kenya cases were before the ICC, when they talk about the court needs to respect African presidents, need to respect African deputy presidents, they never spoke about the fact that at that time as well, a former Ivorian president was indicted and before the International Criminal Court. they didn't make any mention of that. So clearly it had to do with serving leaders, current leaders being indicted. The other person the African Union spoke a lot about was Omar al-Bashir when he was president of Sudan. So the campaign had more to do with leaders being concerned about them being vulnerable to an ICC investigation rather than them worried about justice for victims of violence that has been perpetrated across the continent. And the harsh reality is victims have their own opinion. And I think if one was to talk to victims today in Kenya, you would find that victims, A, are still seeking justice,
Yep.
and B, as much as they are disappointed with what happened at the ICC, they would like either the ICC or something similar to get to the bottom of what happened to them between December 2007 and February 2008.
Is
And-
the
and so now we
mandate? I mean, looking at that now, because there are two things that even just as you've spoken about, is the mandate then to bring quote unquote rogue or errant leaders or individuals to book, or to get justice for those who may have suffered because of these crimes that would have been committed? What would be the driving force behind the ICC?
It is both, because the ICC is very clear that it is limited to bringing to court individuals who have the greatest responsibility or are believed to have the greatest responsibility in relation to crimes that may have been committed in a particular country. The ICC cannot try every single individual who may have been involved in crimes committed. Which is why, just to go back to the Kenya example, which is why the Waki Commission talked about a local tribunal.
Right.
Because the Waki Commission was clear that when you talk about violence at the village level, at the city level, at the individual level, an individual may be able to identify or may have an idea of who did what to them directly. But those people who are doing the violence to them directly are not the people who were planning the violence, if it was planned, are not the people who were financing the violence, if it was financed. These are not; those are two separate individuals. So the Waki Commission was clear that the local tribunal would both look at, investigate, and try individuals who could be directly accused of committing crimes, and those who had an indirect role and perhaps were playing a greater role because they were not just directing one or two individuals, they're directing a group of individuals.
We've talked about that quest for justice for the victims of the 2007 post-election violence. There are people who lost their loved ones. There are people who lost their livelihoods, who are affected up to date. They haven't recovered, and maybe they'll never recover. If you look at the last 12 years and, the way the issue has been played with, it has taken the political turn and twists, but the pursuit of justice itself has never appeared to move. Whose responsibility would it be to bring justice to those victims?
I guess what one would say that the Director of Public Prosecutions has a role. And the Director of Public Prosecutions did form a multi-agency task force which looked at whether there were cases to prosecute. And the conclusion was that there are cases, but they will not be able to succeed in court, because the Director of Public Prosecutions was looking at whether, if they had to try an individual for instance, burning somebody's home, what evidence was available, and given the current the laws prevailing at the time, whether they'd be able to successfully prosecute those individuals. And the Director of Public Prosecutions here in Kenya concluded no. Which is why then in March 2015, we had the President say that rather than seeking restitution, the government would look at restoration. And part of his basis for saying that was this report by the Director of Public Prosecution. However, individual victims have have tried to seek justice for themselves, and the justice that they are seeking is not so much criminal liability and determining who is criminally liable for what happened to them. That is the purview of the Director of Public Prosecution. But they have sought to get the courts, the High Court of Kenya, to say, look, something happened. The government didn't do its role in protecting us, and the government should be held liable for that. So currently, there's a case that just concluded in July, where the High Court determined that out of 15 petitioners who had gone to the High Court, saying that they were victims or their relatives were victims of police shootings across the country, the High Court determined that only 3 of them showed that the government was liable for what happened to them, the harm that they suffered. There's an ongoing case involving victims of sexual violence, and there's another case involving people who were displaced by the violence. In both cases involving the victims of sexual violence and the internally displaced individuals have concluded, and now what is being waited for is the judgment by the court. So in that sense, where possible, victims have pushed forward and tried to at least get acknowledgement that something happened to them, get formal acknowledgement through the court system that something happened to them and that somebody should be held liable, even if the criminal aspect of what happened to them today doesn't seem to be going far.
Do you think, for instance, that if indeed these cases that went to The Hague had been tried in Kenya, that the outcomes might have been different?
It is possible. It is possible. I think depending on how they would have been handled, at the time there was some political will to at least see some justice for victims. I say some because the issue of forming a local tribunal went before Parliament, and Parliament was divided. So you had some members of Parliament who were for the idea, and you had other members of Parliament who were not for the idea. And I think at one stage in one of the sessions of Parliament, you had both the President at the time, Mwai Kibaki, and the Prime Minister at the time, Raila Odinga, go to Parliament to vote on the proposed legislation. And in the cases of Kibaki and Odinga, they voted in favor of the legislation to set up a local tribunal, but the votes against setting up that local tribunal were more than the votes for. So there was some element of political will at the time, which could have given a local tribunal, if it was set up, the kind of push it needed to go forward. And as we've seen with our judiciary currently, given space, our judges are able to exercise their independence and reach a conclusion that people will be able to say, well, okay, they did weigh the evidence properly, and they came to a fair decision. And remember that the local tribunal, the idea was to have a hybrid local tribunal. So a local tribunal made up of both Kenyan and foreign judges, both Kenyan and foreign prosecutors, both Kenyan and foreign investigators.
Do you think that the cases that were taken to The Hague, do you think they had any positive impact on those who may be fomenting ideas to mete out violence on their fellow Kenyans in the future?
I guess because we didn't have violence to the level that we saw in December 2007, 2008 in subsequent elections, I guess one can say it had a positive effect. I guess one can say that because we saw politicians volunteering to be peaceful in their campaigns and to be peaceful in how they manage their campaigns, it did have a positive effect. I guess it also had a positive effect in the sense that it gave further political impetus to the need for a new constitution, which then was passed in August 2010. And that new constitution provided, let's call it a safety valve, in how presidential petitions were handled by the judiciary. Because previously there was no clear path. When you're petitioning against a presidential election, there was no clear path as to how that was to be handled. Whereas under the new constitution, it's clear that the Supreme Court will handle presidential petitions, and that a clear time frame is provided, and that offered a safety valve in that if you're aggrieved, you have recourse and the court will have to listen to you. Previously, if you went to court, there was no guarantee the court would listen to you. Previous petitions against presidential elections, 92, 97, failed on the basis that the petitioner was unable to serve the sitting president with the papers challenging the petition, and the case was said to have failed at that stage. So the judges never even got to hear the main arguments of the case.
You actually raised very good points there, and yes, indeed, those are very positive strides that have been made since then. But I would like to argue that it's not necessarily as a result of the ICC process, but it is as a result of the violence itself. That the lessons learned from the violence itself, the aftermath, the kind of international, local and international pressure that this had brought, is what then would have also contributed majorly to the push for all these changes and all these reforms. And I want to make a statement here, and then I'll seek your comment on that statement. The handling or the attitudes of the Kenyan political leadership and even some senior citizens in the country after the post-election violence, and then the pursuit of justice for the victims of 2007 post-election violence, the handling of that was too much brinkmanship from political leaders, from even those in other opinion leaders like the civil society, such that when Luis Moreno Ocampo announced that he wants to commence cases against Kenyans, there was all that show of, yes, from one side it is individuals are going to be held culpable and we're going to see blood on the streets. From the other side, the political leaders, they were like, okay, so you want to take us on, let us show you that we can also take you on. So the whole issue of justice was forgotten, and then now the issue of who has the might and the power is what took center stage. And at the end, the victim is still left suffering because of brinkmanship by politicians, by civil society. Your comment?
Of course, when the cases began, the individuals who were indicted then proceeded to defend themselves. And they defended themselves in the way they saw best. And the defense was not restricted to the courtroom. And this again is another weakness of a court process, because the individuals who are being treated as suspects before a court, who are facing allegations in court, do not have to restrict themselves to the courtroom. They can go to the court of public opinion if they are in high office, as happened in the Kenya cases. They can use other mechanisms. The African Union does not hold summits outside their regular calendar, which is January and July. Each year, the African Union leaders meet twice, January and July. And it is very rare for those leaders to meet outside those two regular meetings. But Kenya was able to lobby for an extraordinary summit only on the ICC. And the intention then was to get the African Union to call for and endorse a withdrawal of African members of the ICC from the ICC. That failed. But the impact of it remains.
Yep.
Because now the conversation about the ICC became part of the agenda of the African Union at the heads of state level, at the heads of government level, and continues to be. And therefore, then that's now why you have the talk about, ICC targeting Africans and things like that.
Yeah.
So yes, in that sense, there was a negative impact. And the only way one could perhaps mitigate that is to see a case go to its logical conclusion, and however the judges determine the outcome, everybody involved in the case is able to say, I may agree or I may not agree with the outcome, but I also think that the case was handled fairly. And in the case of the Kenya cases, especially the one which got to the stage of the prosecution closing their case, unfortunately, the judges were clear. They might have disagreed on how to end the cases, but they were clear that the cases were so severely compromised that any fair-minded judge could not reach a conclusion one way or the other.
How about the civil society's role during that period? Do you think they stayed the cause in pursuing justice, or did they get swallowed up in the politics?
I think them getting swallowed up in the politics will depend on which side you're on in the argument, because, again, remember that there was a smear campaign that was conducted. I myself was a victim of that campaign. And my role was to report on the cases. I did not do any advocacy on behalf of victims or anything like that, but I got swept up as other media colleagues and other individuals got swept up in that smear campaign. So there was a time even just speaking in favor of victims was seen to be taken aside. And that's the unfortunate reality of Kenya.
Is it a problem taking the side? I mean, many people would throw a "so what" at that, because if you're looking at justice for victims, I mean, within the arenas where we're playing, justice for victims and advocating for such, would that be a problem? In the light of everything else that was going on, why was it a problem? And even today, if still seeking for the justice of those victims who went through, any kind of trouble, seeking their justice, is this still a problem today? Why was it a problem then? Should it still be a problem today?
It was a problem because you had high-profile individuals, powerful individuals, who were before a court, and they were before a court being accused of having been involved in crime. And so speaking about victims was seen to be speaking against them. That's why it mattered.
Tom, in the history of the ICC, have they ever indicted a sitting president before the case that involved our president and the deputy?
Yes, Omar al-Bashir was indicted while he was president of Sudan. There are 2 warrants of arrest, outstanding by the way, still, for him, involving allegations that he was involved in alleged war crimes, alleged genocide, and crimes against humanity. In the Kenya cases, by the way, when the indictments were issued, the individuals concerned were not president and deputy president.
True.
At the time, Uhuru Kenyatta was deputy prime minister, and I think at the time, in fact, William Ruto had been dismissed from the cabinet.
Now, why I ask this question is for a very simple reason. What do you think, because al-Bashir has never been to the ICC, despite the summons, what then would you say is the effectiveness of the ICC really?
I think the effectiveness is that we're having this discussion.
Really? So I want to ask, so what?
If, well, then you would not be taking time to talk to me, and that's the harsh reality. You'd be talking about something else, a topic that is more current, that is more important. But clearly, even in its failings, the ICC has brought light to an issue of great concern. And let's not forget, I mean, December 2007 to February 2008 was a very dark period in this country. I don't know about you, but I'm sure there were individuals who were thinking, well, do I really still need to be in Kenya? I mean, is there a Kenya that will remain after this?
Right.
Because at one point it was very likely that this country was going to split up. So yeah, and the fact that there is a possibility that a future prosecutor can look and take up a case if new evidence comes up or if new witnesses come forward is in and of itself a huge thing.
Okay. Tom Maliti, thank you very much for speaking to us. Tom is the veteran journalist. He's a writer with the Open Society Justice Initiative. We've been looking at the unfinished business between the country and the International Criminal Court, and you've given us quite some good insights, and we thank you very much and wish you a good day, Tom.
Thank you very much for having me, and I also wish you a good day.
Thank you, Tom.
Asante sana. Time for us to take a break on KTN Home. This conversation continues, and then we have other conversations in the 8 o'clock hour, in the 9 o'clock hour. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
So the question we were asking this morning, and we want you to win this gift hamper by New KCC, the Gold Crown lactose-free milk, is in what color is the Gold Crown lactose-free milk packet? What is the color of the Gold Crown lactose-free milk packet? Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on Twitter. And then our main man, Mr. Brian Amulioto, our social media producer, will pick 2 winners by the end of this show, and we're going to reward them. So the new Gold Crown lactose-free milk by the New KCC is especially good for people who are lactose intolerant. Now, we've said it doesn't mean that if you are okay with lactose, then you don't take this. No. It means that, if you have maybe somebody in your household who is lactose intolerant, you just buy this and all of you can consume milk. You don't have to buy 2 different types of milk. The other thing that you need to know is if you're allergic to milk, not just lactose, but you're allergic to milk. Maybe you've gone and the doctor has told you you're allergic to milk, please avoid milk. You cannot take the lactose intolerant milk because it has the full milk components. The only thing that has been broken down is the lactose in the milk. So if you're allergic to milk, no, do not take the lactose intolerant milk unless the doctor goes and advises you that, okay, your allergy is allows you to have this one.
Okay.
Concluding this conversation on the ICC, and you asked that question, what do you feel is the effectiveness of the ICC?
Well, the thing that it does, it brings to the discussion table a possibility that very many leaders, especially on this continent and other parts of the world, where we've seen atrocities being committed, it brings home the message that you will not get away with it. And that this matter will be discussed for the entire world to witness and for the entire world to cast judgment if they so wish. Now, that alone, to me, in my opinion, is useful. Because even I'm looking for an appropriate adjective, even the most brazen of dictators likes to be considered to be a good leader.
Of course.
You don't the negative side of you.
Not really. Not
Posted
really.
up there
If
if you're taken to the ICC and your case goes and it's not even taken to a proper trial, then and you're able to give such serious pushback, then also one could also argue that this ICC lost a bit of credibility on that from the office of the prosecutor and how they handled the issue and all.
You see, even if it's the office of the prosecutor, we will not look into those details. We will say it is the ICC. Because the question that will be asked is there no mechanism to ensure that if the individual, not even the office, if the individual who's holding that office is clearly seen to be performing below par, what then do you do? Because he's human.
Yeah.
If he's pursuing a personal agenda,
Yes.
using his office,
Yes.
how do you call him out?
Yes. If as it is argued that there were witnesses who are tampered with, what makes you think the prosecutor cannot be tampered with?
Which was the sentiment that came out quite clearly from some quarters.
Yes.
Yeah.
These are all human beings, and a case of this nature, and given what was at stake,
Yep. Lest we forget, there are people who suffered, there are people who died, there are people who lost their kin, who lost their property in the 2007-2008 post-election violence. That we cannot wish away and that we cannot take away. And hopefully someday there'll be justice for the victims of the 2008 post-election violence. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, coming to the top of the hour. In the next hour, we look at what the Ministry of Health is now telling us. Watch out, look out. Coronavirus is still here with us, and maybe we need to take something seriously. Good morning. It's now 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice it down.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, still traffic continues on Mombasa Road today. It's backed up still to right around the SGR and then heading out. Still bumper to bumper situation on Mombasa Road today. Thika Road also. People been there for some time. What is causing this particular traffic? We don't know, but it's quite high on Thika Road this morning. Trying to get out towards the underpass is very, very slow, but it's moving, so it's a good thing. At least people are not at a standstill. Survey towards Mathaiga is absolutely slow on the highway, and that's from about 10 minutes ago, and then moving forward. We're looking at traffic on Mombasa Road persisting until December this year. And this is because at some point, Mombasa Road on both sides will be single lane. And Kenha has warned of this disruption, and you know that this is going to happen between now and December. It's likely to be more and more as we go along. So you need to prepare for this as we see it. Okay, Jogo Road, getting towards the City Stadium roundabout, not looking too bad, moving very slowly, trying to get into the CBD at some points, and then faster in others, so it's not a terrible situation. Let us know what it looks like in your neck of the woods if you might be stuck somewhere. Remember, the Eastern and Southern Bypass is up and ready. They're able to get to town or out of town quicker, even though it's longer. Spice FM KE on Twitter or 40127. Text us.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
8 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, on this beautiful Thursday morning, the 15th day of October 2020. broadcasting on KTN Home as well for the next 1 hour. And we'd like to thank everybody who's watching us on KTN Home this morning and everybody else who's watching us on Spice FM KE on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, or on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. Now, coronavirus numbers in the country, COVID-19. Every new day, without fail, the Ministry of Health gives an update of the samples tested and the results. Those that have come out positive, those that tested negative, and even going to give us the number of fatalities, the latest number of fatalities as they have them. Recently, the Ministry of Health has also been issuing this warning and saying, look, we are seeing somehow of an increase in the number of cases. Now, some people have gone ahead and said it's a second wave, it could be a risk of a second wave and all that. Now, the definition and all of a second wave is something that's still up in the air and the clarity of which is not yet given. But the fact of the matter is the Ministry of Health has warned that if we continue to behave normally, this thing is still here with us and it's going to treat us abnormally. Now, take that and, using CT's word, juxtapose it with the behavior of the citizens in the country. There was a point when there was direct and genuine fear at the very beginning of this virus. There were people, especially in the urban areas, who got that fear. There are people in other parts of the country who felt, yeah, there's fear, yes, but it's far removed. It's in Nairobi. It is not here. Because even at that point, we were still hearing people like the lady that was interviewed by KTN, and she said she's in Mombasa. She said, look, when that thing comes close, tell me. Right now, it's in Nairobi. I'm not bothering about that. I'm bothering about my local ailments and diseases and how to get my water and all. Others were saying, and we even spoke to the CEC for Makueni, and he was saying, talking to women in Makueni, and they're saying, you people just wanted money. You got the money. So can you just leave us alone? So at that point, there was that whole mix. But those that had fear were completely, fearful and thinking, we don't know what's going to happen in COVID-19. With time, the number of people who got the message increased. But like the ministry is saying, the behavior of the citizens appears to have, what shall I say, slackened in terms of being careful and being watchful for COVID-19. When you're required to wear a mask in public, people have masks, yes, but are they wearing them how they should wear them? No. When you're required not to board a crowded public service vehicle, people are not observing that. When you're required to at least even wear a mask when you're on a border, people are not observing that. How often are you seeing people now with hand washing stations at their premises, at the markets, outside their shops? How often are you seeing people with hand sanitizers as you enter shops? Sometimes you find a guy has a hand sanitizer, he does the temperature thing and tells you, wewe uko sawa. Lets you pass. So it appears like the people are behaving as if Corona imeisha. And that's the vibe around the country. Corona imeisha. We have opened the economy. We are good. Are we good, City?
We are horrible. When I say horrible, I mean I'm contradicting that good statement. There's nothing good about this. Look, our testing is hovering around 500,000. Okay? Against a population of 47, 48 million, 49 million, 50 million.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what is certain is that if you test adequately, you will have a clear picture of what the situation with regards to COVID infection is in the country. Our testing is inadequate. That stories of kids that were arriving from some place, week by week, they were still coming. Then the story died. Then more news of some sort of testing taking place. One, there's so much uncertainty just around testing alone. Then there was a story, and I'm calling it a story because that's what it was, about adequate PPEs being provided within health facilities. You don't hear of that story anymore. Neither do you hear of the story that there was adequate provision of PPEs for health facilities. Neither do you hear of adequate provision of PPEs for health workers. So when you look at the situation that we have and you think of one detail of schools now being reopened, being introduced into the discussion, then you introduce into the discussion the possibility of children getting infected in large numbers, and in so doing, also infecting those they live with, their parents and other siblings or other relatives with whom they share the same space in the homes that they live in.
Right.
Now, so, if you look at other countries that have opened up the economy and who at some point had opened it simply because they felt that their COVID situation was under control, it's been with the disastrous consequences, and they're having to shut down again.
Right.
There is no place on the planet where they've opened up the economy and haven't had to close it in one way or the other. None whatsoever. So what makes us think that we are different?
That's the question. What
There
does...
is a place, City. Tanzania.
Okay.
No. Eric's point is valid insofar as you're assuming that Tanzania actually followed the trend that other countries in the world were following. They did not.
They didn't shut down, though.
Not really.
They did.
No.
Not in the way in
No.
the way in which other countries did.
Tanzania closed down schools. Tanzania reduced the number of people in public service vehicles. Tanzania closed what do you call social and cultural establishments. Tanzania, yes, all those things.
Well, I think it was clear
Wait,
that Tanzania took a very different approach to
and
this.
then-
Same
spoke to-
things that Kenya did.
We spoke to the presidential candidate Tindilusu last week, and what did he tell us? He said that it's even criminal now to mention COVID-19 in Tanzania. You talk about the prevalence of it or such, you could actually be arrested by the state.
Yeah.
So in terms of turning a blind eye to what is happening with COVID, it is clear what Tanzania did. We are not focusing on it at all. We are going about our business as normal. We've prayed, handed it over to God, it's finished.
Yeah,
So in
that's
terms
true.
of testing
The point
and
I
all
was
of
just
that, they
making
never
is there's a
even
country that
went
has
through it.
reopened and has not been forced to revert to that state again.
Well, they have taken a completely different view to the matter.
Totally different view.
Yes. They have taken the view that COVID doesn't exist. That's the view they have taken. And they have taken the view that they have prayed about it, and that's it. So the initial shutting down was just that. They were following trend that everybody else was following, and then they said, excuse me, to hell with this. What on earth are we doing? Now, what is of particular and peculiar interest, I was hoping you'd say this, is that you don't hear of any alarming numbers of COVID infection in Tanzania either. There are those who will say, but they don't test and so you don't know. Well, the thing is we don't know. That's the truth. But then again, there's the question of, can you really hide deaths if they're in large numbers? The answer is no, you cannot. So,
But we're also saying that it's just because a large population may have COVID doesn't necessarily equate to death.
No,
that
it
people
doesn't.
will not necessarily die because they have COVID.
they also won't necessarily even be falling sick.
Exactly. Okay.
Not necessarily.
Now, if we look at what's happening in Kenya and look at the rising numbers, we know that as of yesterday, as of 2 days ago, the NMS has asked, because of Nairobi having 50% of the cases reported with COVID at any time in the country, 50%, the NMS is now asking that everybody this weekend, as much as you can, go and get a COVID test. They're catering for this because they want to know what really is happening. They've also seen the rising trend in cases, and they've said, please go ahead and get a test because it'll help us to make decisions going forward. They really now, at this point, don't ask me why this was not done before, but at this point, want to know what exactly the footprint looks like. And it will help them to make decisions on a national level in terms of what should happen moving forward. We also heard from CAS in the Ministry of Health, Rashid Ahmad, when he said, look, we are seeing a rise in these cases. We are seeing that we may need to reinstitute measures which have played, which had played a role in helping to curb this thing before. And because of the actions or the inaction of the general population, it would seem as if these cases are rising. Okay, and I quote what he said: "We will have to take action to restrict movement or close schools if the numbers will increase. We will monitor what is happening in our schools and take action based on what will be fit at that time." NMS asking for you to go ahead and get tested over the next 3 days, this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, in different hospitals around the city. This will then inform decisions that could be made in the next few days or so. So for them, they're really feeling that this is a problem from
So
the
they have
Ministry
test
of
kits.
Health. Now they have test kits.
Have they
Do
said
they?
they have test kits?
They
Do
say you
have
should go and
test
get tested. How will you get tested if you don't have a kit for COVID? They have urged Nairobi residents to go ahead and get tested.
Similar
The
pronouncements have been
testing
made.
is not drawing blood. There's only one kind of test for COVID.
Similar pronouncements have been made by the national government with regards to testing. And the test of the availability of test kits has been failed consistently by the national government. Inadequate test kits. So you can talk as much as you like about testing and wanting to test and thinking of testing. Until there's evidence, it takes me back to the preparation of the special wards for COVID patients.
Okay. NMS Health Director Josephine Kibarumbai, what she said yesterday was that we're asking everybody to go ahead to as many areas in which you can. In Kasarani Sub-County, in Embakasi, Dandora, Embakasi North, Umoja 1, Embakasi West, Nairobi Pentecostal Glory in Embakasi. This is just Embakasi. Testing in Dagoretti North would take place. Testing in Starehe would take place. Testing in Makadara would take place. And Langata, Kamkunji, Ruaraka Westlands, all around the city. So they're saying that you can go to several health centers and you'll be able to get tested. Do you think that they're going to ask people to show up to these centers
let me ask
and
you.
it's going to be a walk in the park or something to do on a Saturday and you won't actually get a test?
What is the
Their
population of
samples will be
Nairobi
taken.
County? The population of Nairobi
4
is
million.
4 million people. Right? You haven't said, we'd like you to send just the head of the family or the youngest person in your family. You've said, as many people as possible,
How's that going to work?
come and get tested.
Nairobi city residents.
Assume 10,000 people, not even go to the entire, for 10,000 people turn up for tests in those 3 days.
They have 10,000
Or per
tests
day.
waiting.
You want to tell me that you go to those centers, you have that capacity?
I don't want to tell you. I'm telling you what the director has said.
I am actually thinking that this thing was misreported.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah,
She
because
was gotten out of context.
yes, because look, Ndu, think about it for a single second,
How do you take something like this out of context?
easily.
The Nairobi Metropolitan Services has appealed for large turnouts in all 17 sub-counties of Nairobi, right? They've gone ahead to say, and she herself, not anybody else, the health director for the NMS, they said they will test as many people as possible after a sustained community mobilization by health workers and community health workers.
When?
And this is a quote, this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This is a quote. The community health workers will give health messages and encourage community members to present themselves voluntarily for testing. Did she pick this one out of the clouds?
No, I would actually like that particular director or people who are in authority in that department within the county to actually verify this.
So you think this could be a story?
And
So if
until-
people show up for testing this weekend, if people show up in these 17 sub-counties and these health centers which have been identified for this testing to take place, they're going to be met with air?
No, I would like confirmation, actual confirmation by individuals who actually work.
Yeah, what's the name of the Chief Officer for Health in Nairobi?
Oluga.
Dr. Uma Oluga.
Yes.
John, let's try and get Dr. Uma Oluga if we can and see if he's able to just give us clarity
This one
on
requires
this particular
explanation
issue,
and
right?
clarity. Yes.
Going back, let's assume that even happens. The Ministry of Health is saying, look, we are seeing the number of cases rising. We are seeing positivity rate has now gone back to 5%. What was it at the time the president was making the last announcement?
4.7%.
Having come down from 12 to 9 to 7 to 4.7. Now we're back to 5 and it's fluctuating.
Now
This
it's
is
12
based on the
actually.
Now
Yeah.
it's 12.
Now it's back to 12.
There you go.
Yeah.
This is just on the number of samples available. Do you think that all this talk by the government is creating confidence among the people, or even making people feel, yeah, this is happening? So let's observe the measures.
No.
All right. The Ministry of
Doing
Health.
opposite.
The Ministry of Health keeps doing what it does on a daily basis. What I'd like to know, that special think tank that the president has, the Brain Trust.
Yep.
What do they think? You see, a similar problem has arisen in the UK, where it is being reported that the experts, the scientists, advised Boris Johnson on one thing. Boris Johnson proceeded to do something quite different. Okay? And now, as far as many of them are concerned, they have problems looming. just around the corner. And the same action that has been taken in France is something that they had suggested. They said, look, given what we have, you need to take stringent measures. Let's not be iffy about this. Okay?
Yep.
Let's lock down the situation. Now, we are in a situation where we're saying, let's open up against a background of no evidence of sufficient tests having been done, no clear understanding of whether the backlog of samples that had been taken having been processed. There is so much that is unclear. Now, unless we hear from experts, let the politicians do what they do, but let the experts tell us that this is where we are at, and this is what we foresee, and this is what we suggest. Because right now, the statements that we are hearing do not inspire confidence, unfortunately.
When a decision is being made at government level, the decision makers take in advice from all quarters. So there are security experts, there are economic experts, there are the medical experts. And at one point or the other, just like even that first time when the president said, I was thinking that we reopen, but the medical advice was, let's not reopen yet. It appears that the second time, the medical advice was sort of not as loud as before, and therefore the other side to carry the day. Is it possible that then there are all these competing interests that influence the decision that is made at government level that, would, or maybe there's even more information that they have. There's even a strategy that they have that maybe they'll not be able to come and tell us, that they're using to say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to observe. Yes, we are seeing the numbers are rising. Yes, we can see what's happening. But let's also see what else is happening to then force us to go into closing. If in the case of the UK, Boris Johnson was saying the other day that the number of people in hospitals now is higher than the number of people who were in hospital the first time that he ordered a lockdown. Yes. That is something that can now inform his decision. That yes, there's a jump in the number of people who are testing positive, but there's also a jump in the number of people who are seeking care in our hospitals. So if I don't take action, then this could overrun us. Maybe in the case of Kenya, they're looking at the same and saying, yes, we can see the rise, but looking at the number of people who are seeking care in hospitals, is it increasing? Looking at the number of people who are seeking critical care, we know that in Nakuru, they have said the number of people seeking critical care in Nakuru has been on an increase, and the Nakuru County government has been saying, look, we are seeing this and we are trying to address this as much as we can. Maybe there's a wait and see from other quarters at the high levels of government, including intelligence, security, economics, and medical experts, and everybody else.
Maybe there is a wait and see. And maybe that's why you see this announcement coming out from the NMS, just as an example, where she said, again, that, what we want to do is go through and do this random testing. Do you remember when all of this started? And in terms of mass testing, it started from random, it then went to targeted, and then went to community, and it has come back again to random testing, because they've realized that there are pockets of these increases here and about where they see that there are cases where now are being reported. Now, do they want to get a larger picture? Yes, they do now. Should they maybe have wanted to get a larger picture previously? That's also a yes. But now with what they're seeing, decisions need to be made as far as they're concerned. Now, finally, it could be that now this decision is going to be fueled by this information that they're getting, the real, actual, raw information from the ground. Finally, maybe a decision like that is going to be made based on this.
All right, let's go to the phone lines, and we have a caller calling in. Dr. Charles Muga, good morning.
Yes, hi, good morning.
Good morning, Charles.
Hey, good morning. My good friend, good morning. Yes, this whole COVID thing, first of all, we acknowledge it exists. Here's the problem. The way we initiated control measures and it was basically top down. You can never control an epidemic from top down. You need, and they did not follow the typical epidemiological methods of controlling what we call a respiratory infection. We know COVID is droplet infection. Therefore, there are specific techniques that are often used. But what we got was, I think we all know, the discrimination of people with COVID. You got people stigmatization. So people ran away. This is top down. If they have done it bottom up, It's education. It's telling people how this thing is spread. So now, and Kenya specifically, it seems like we depended on what WHO says or some other country has done. And to me, that's not how we should do it. There are enough experts in Kenya to give solid advice in terms of what needs to be done. Unfortunately, that wasn't done. There was the science of getting COVID in followed, but there was no science of now the exact things we are talking about. How do you reopen to close again, which tends to be the trend now. So as far as I'm concerned, we're still probably in the dark. This design to screen people in Nairobi.
Yeah.
A couple of months ago, we were told that there was something done in Nairobi where they found 2 million Nairobians with the antibodies. Antibodies in your body means you've been exposed to that virus. The details of it haven't been given out. And the way they do it is, again, very specific. You don't just go out and ask people and plead with people to come for testing. You're supposed to know exactly how many people you want, randomly select them, and then do that. Then you can get what we, a baseline survey. We've never done it. We've been doing Kawangware, Mombasa.
Old Town.
What you're calling, you use the word there. But again, that's not going to help because we know it's here. The problem is, what is the intensity of it? How far spread is it? This random thing is done within a model. But it hasn't been done. It has never been done. So we'll continue probing in the dark or shooting in the dark until someone properly, professionally, and epidemiologically designs a testing thing that covers nationally. And that's some few ideas.
Is that a difficult thing to do, Dr. Is that a difficult thing to do, this mapping that you're talking about? If it's in epidemiological study, is it possible to do without too much of a headache?
Absolutely.
What's happened?
Are you there, Dr.
Yeah, it is very simple. It's been done for years. This is not the first epidemic or pandemic we're seeing. There are design methods where you can actually determine the number of people by region, by count, not asking people to come in because that's a biased sample. Only those with health-seeking behavior that, drives them to stay healthy will appear.
True.
The others, right from the word go, we've stigmatized this disease. We have created a situation where people are afraid.
People will not go for the tests.
No, they won't come because they know what happened last time. We were chasing people over walls and to arrest them. And they haven't forgotten that. That's because it was, it was done top down.
Dr. Maringo, we thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you for calling in this morning. And we wish you a great day. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. 26 minutes after 8. It's time for us to take a break on Spice FM and KTN Home. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
It's sunny in some parts and cloudy in others. In Nairobi at 18 degrees. We'll see highs of 28 today and lows of 14. Njeri will have highs of 26 today. Partly cloudy conditions at 17 degrees. Nakuru at 17, partly cloudy, highs of 26 and lows of 12. At 16 degrees, Eldoret is also partly cloudy, 22 the high and lows of 12 with a chance of rains later on. It'll be highs of 28 and lows of 19 in Kisumu, where it's currently partly cloudy. 18 degrees and partly cloudy in Kakamega, highs of 26 and lows of 15 with showers expected in the afternoon. It's mostly sunny in Mombasa at 27. It'll change later though, with rains expected and highs of 29. Partly cloudy at 28 in Malindi, highs of 29 and lows of 25. Kampala's mostly cloudy at 19 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 18 with showers expected later. Dar es Salaam will experience thunderstorms through most parts of today. It's holding out for now though, 26 degrees and mostly cloudy at the moment. It's mostly sunny in Johannesburg at 13 degrees, highs of 27 and lows of 13 with showers expected later. The thunderstorms continue in Lagos at 29 degrees. That'll be the high with lows of 23.
Spice FM. Njeri.
Okay, still some crazy traffic on Mombasa Road. Yes, there is. Leading you all the way from the SGR. Still moving very slowly. Bumper to bumper situation and inches of movement all the way to the JKI turnoff. The Utali drift today on Thika Road is a nightmare. It's moving very slowly and in some cases not at all. So guys, if you're heading in that direction from further ahead, you need to know that that's what's ahead of you. You need some patience to get through this one today. Jogger Road is looking a little bit better. Cars are moving. Traffic is moving, headed into industrial area or then into the CBD at the City Stadium roundabout. So that shouldn't be too terrible moving on out. Coming off of Langata Road and Gong Road as you approach Bagathi Way, you should be all right. And then going towards Valley Road into the CBD, again, you should be fine. Uhuru Highway is still bumper to bumper, but it'll open up as you get along. Don't forget, you get stuck, let us know, Spice FM KE on Twitter or text us on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
8:30. The conversation continues. Spice FM, Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Njeri, Eldoret. Also online on www.spicefm.co.ke and on KTN Home for the next half hour. Mutahi Kagwe, the Cabinet Secretary for Health, once cautioned us that if we continue to behave normally, this disease will treat us abnormally. And the question we were asking this morning, are Kenyans back to behaving normally? Is there a widespread assumption that now with the loosening of measures, people just heard that first part of the president's speech, they did not hear the other part where he was cautioning that, there's still the lurking danger of the spread of COVID-19. And if we do not take care, we are going to have a spike in reinfections and we could go back. Is that what is happening? Is the government also leading that by example, by behaving normally, as if the COVID-19 is not there? What do you get the vibe from the government? Are you getting the vibe from a government that is really cautiously observing this and saying we are monitoring, we are taking all measures, all possible measures, precautionary measures, as we allow the citizens to get back into their daily grind? We are doing what else we can do to protect them. Do you get that vibe from the government?
That they're leading by example? No. This one you talk about everybody acting as though it's COVID is a thing of the past, or now talking about it historically. It's an attitude that is being perpetuated by everybody. The very few people who are still keeping up with the measures that have been put in place to make sure that we don't have this problem. Unfortunately, that's the case. The people are making jokes about it, but they really actually do believe that COVID is gone. It's not there anymore. But it is. And it's a very dangerous attitude to have, unfortunately. If you want to look at government proceedings or government business, yes, everybody within the house is wearing masks and things. But then after the house, out of the house, it's like business as usual. The same thing. If you look at if you go to certain parts of the Nairobi, for example, there's certain areas where people are not wearing masks. They don't even, not resonating with this at all.
Not certain areas, many areas.
Nobody's resonating with it at all. There are some areas where people from the very beginning never even wore masks. For example, never bothered with this hygiene or talking about washing your hands and using sanitizer. Nobody did. So then now it's not an attitude that anybody's going to pick up. And those who started have left it behind, thinking that, all right, the day that we started to see below 100 cases and even further below that, everybody said, okay, we're out of the woods now and we are fine. And now, even worse, when things opened up, people now took it as license to operate the way in which we want. No, but caution to the wind was thrown in bucket loads. And everybody said, okay, we are fine. Very dangerous.
You see, the matter of COVID cannot be looked at in isolation. If you're asking the question about what the government is doing, it's what the government is doing in relation to other issues that the government has to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
One, KRA, much as they try, there's a limit to how much money KRA is able to collect.
Yeah.
Much as they try, there's a limit to how much the government can allocate to the counties, the government can allocate to the Ministry of Health, the government can allocate to the Ministry of Education. There are these genuine limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've discussed this on many occasions and talked about priorities, but this isn't the time to discuss that. What I'm looking at is this. Given the resources that we have, realistically, I would ask the question, are we utilizing these resources in the best manner possible? That is what I would ask.
Like what resources?
For instance, we know that in preparation or in anticipation of a problem with COVID, as in the spiking of numbers who needed or people who needed specialized care, the government did set aside 5 billion shillings and the government did distribute this among the counties to ensure that the counties were at least set up to be ready in case there was a spike. Mm. That is government effort.
Mm.
Where government effort keeps hitting a rock is when it comes to the testing kits. Mm. We hear of promises, we hear of anticipation. The anticipation and the promises never come to an end. They just continue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's one. Now, if you're asking about the government keeping us informed about what's happening, I think the government is juggling. It's juggling. Amidst all the things that it has to do, and among the things it has to do is to report accurately and to give their people hope, they're juggling. And they're trying to figure out the best way of putting this across with the reality that they themselves know.
Yeah.
Yes, that, in my opinion, is what the reality is as far as the government is concerned.
Do you think the other reality, because it's a reality of how COVID is behaving in Africa, is also informing government decision in how it's behaving, how it's conducting the affairs, how it's managing our response towards COVID-19? Because the fact of the matter is, yes, there is a way in which, so far, we don't know about the future, but so far, how COVID has behaved in the continent. And having a very strong and powerful intelligence community, they're able to even monitor just across the border. So yes, Tanzania has declared and they have decided it's even criminal for you to talk about COVID-19, but we have a system that can monitor and see what exactly is happening in that country.
Yes, we do.
Then that also is adding to the information that comes into the government that, okay, so let's continue observing. So we'll activate our intelligence and see what is happening. Are there people who are going into hospital? Then we shall inform. But at this point, what we see versus what we see in Tanzania versus what we see in Uganda, in South Sudan, we're good. Maybe it's actually a security and intelligence arm that is informing the government and saying, if we create so much more fear and then going back into the issue of stigmatization for COVID, we are going to take a bigger tank in our economy. So encourage people, let them continue their economic activity, but let's observe and see. Maybe there's that.
Maybe there's that. Indeed, maybe there's that. But look, we have accused this government of never actually being prepared to do what they should do. Rather, they are quick to look for help from others. This is one situation where that help isn't forthcoming in the way they would anticipate it. So, indeed, what the government can do is limited. It's the truth. It doesn't really matter. They can keep trying and trying, but the truth is it's limited. So that's why I go back to the question I raised. With what we have, are we putting it to the best possible use? Now, therein you may have a debate. Is our focus right now, is it the best focus we can have given all the issues that the government may be juggling right now?
Probably. In a way, by the way, I would maybe say, okay, let the focus continue being that. We have the Ministry of Health which is doing its job. And the job that it's doing is, with the limited resources that they have, for whatever reason, they are still continuing to test, they're still continuing to collect data, and they are announcing. That means that they are keeping track of what's happening. While at the same time, the hospitals are getting equipped. While at the same time, you let people take this personal responsibility. If the personal responsibility of the people is, let's just continue and live our lives. On the other hand, what is informing people's personal behavior? People's personal behavior is informed by the fact that, the same way we've said before, if you do not see the effect near you, then you continue to live.
You consider that it actually doesn't, you'll take the view that it doesn't exist.
Yes.
Or you'll behave as though it doesn't
You
exist.
behave as though it doesn't exist because you're not seeing the impact of that around you. When somebody then, when it comes close, those people would change their behavior for a while and then go back.
But also that view is not in isolation. Huh? Because even at the personal level, it is staying healthy, which has a cost to it, and juggling with it everything else that you have to do.
Yep.
You see, that's where this decision-making process gets tricky. And health, unfortunately, unless someone feels that they are at death's door,
They're not going to go and take
will
care
not
of it.
take a priority.
Nope.
No, it will not. They'll postpone that care-seeking or attention as much as they possibly can until they feel I might actually leave this particular planet and go to another existence. Before then, they will not.
Therein then lies the problem with this recent announcement that the NMS health boss has asked people to come out and get tested this weekend. Therein lies the problem. Because, I mean, it's already, we from the very beginning, we've been saying, clearly there are more in terms of a positive population when it comes to COVID than has been found or reported via testing. There is more, even as we speak now.
Yes.
For sure. There are very many more people who would have COVID than have been recorded or reported, without saying. Now, all of these things that you have mentioned, plus the stigma of the stigma attached to it, and the very fact that people still do not want a depressed situation whereby they cannot go out to get their daily bread and butter, will stop them from going for these tests this weekend. Because if she's very clearly said that we're using this information then to make certain decisions, we hear from the Ministry of Health the possibility of us to reintroduce restrictions or to even close establishments that have been opened since, to go back into a closed state of things is very high if the cases continue to rise. And then in the same breath, you're asking people to come out this weekend and come and get tested. Do you really think that's going to happen?
It might. I can only look at this matter that you've brought up against the voluntary testing that was done with HIV. That's what they call it, VCT, voluntary counseling and testing. If we had said voluntary collection of milk and vegetables, I can accurately tell you.
You'd have run out of stock within hours.
Yes, that guaranteed. You know why? Because the benefit of what you're offering can be seen directly.
And it's a need.
Yes. And when you're talking about COVID, and there's all these messages of COVID, COVID will not constitute an emergency unless your health is in danger. And this one, where you're saying a large number of people will be COVID positive. Yes, but they will not exhibit any alarming symptoms.
Yeah.
So, there's what you say and there's what is understood. This is always the case here. What do you think when you say that will likely be heard and understood? So, I may have COVID, but I don't feel sick. So, why should I get tested? I think I would urge those who are listening to go and get tested. For the simple reason that the status that you have will not change whether you're tested or not. The testing won't change anything except inform you. And if it informs you, then you will now know what you ought to do after that. The caution, the precaution you need to take. What you need to consider. And if you're concerned about perhaps being positive, you will likely know that you either are or you're not.
Or you're
But
not.
the thing is, you will be informed. You, the
You will
individual.
know.
You will be informed. That
about that
information,
time?
yes, is useful in making a decision.
Daniel calling in from Kisumu. Let's hear from him. Good morning, Daniel.
Yes, good morning, the team. How are you?
We're fine, thank you.
Yeah, it's a bright morning.
Mm-hmm.
Let me have my contribution on this. You see, before COVID time, there were three different types of fear. There was this fear of unknown, the fear of reprisal, and the fear of the law.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also this vague understanding of the disease, and there was a strict community surveillance, and there was also that suspicion between the community.
Yep.
And this also contributed a lot to the disease surveillance. For example, in our village, when somebody came from Nairobi, it's only the villagers who could report. But life after is very different because this new normal has brought another attitude of thinking that this disease is not infectious, is not what. So there is quite a contrast between life before and life after COVID. Yeah, so it's upon the government also to come up with other measures that can curtail the spread.
Thank you, Daniel. Mohammed in Mwakijembe, good morning.
Hongwana, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, Mohammed.
Today I will try to do some revision of what I just spoke the other day regarding COVID-19 or corona. Currently, the world over, the effort and the passion of coming up with a vaccine is very, very active. The purpose of the vaccine is to put up immunity in your system or to create immunity in your system to fight back that particular virus, bacteria, whatever organism which causes that particular disease. Now, vaccines are simply made out of, for example, if it is a virus, the virus is either attenuated or killed or live, depending on the severity of the disease, so that when it's introduced in your body, it alerts the immune system to fight back that particular virus. And viral infection in most cases are not curable. But we can only tackle it by having vaccination. And vaccination is to awaken the immune system to fight back. So primarily, we should consider on how to boost our immune system. Secondarily is to just follow the instruction to keep distance and mask and sanitization and what have you. But in the primary issue of tackling this case is to boost our immune system. We are lucky in Africa, they thought that we'll be dying like cockroaches here, but we have plenty of sun. Sun is giving you vitamin D, which plays a big role in boosting your immune system. The poor people can't afford mapochopocho, lavish style of food and all that, junk food. Lakini the poor common mwananchi kama Muhammad hapa, tunakula mchunga, we eat mchicha, sukuma wiki, all these greens, they really help in boosting the immune system. That's why even if you are positive with the corona, still there are no symptoms because your immune system is fighting back. So why shouldn't we, and I challenge any medic, that if we start boosting while waiting for the vaccine, let us boost simple exercise, being exposed to the sun, eating a lot of greens, tafuta juice, ukwaju, machungwa, anything, and boost your immune system. We'll fight it back. This is my contribution today, Wazir.
Mohammed, thank you very much. I want to ask you, do you think then the citizens are taking, this is what they've adopted? So when you see people in the streets not wearing masks, it's because amekunywa juice ya ukwaju na akakula mchicha.
See, even if your immune system is strong, it will fight back. If your immune system is weak, hata ukiva borokwa 10 and you washe mikono mara 20 and keep distance instead of 2 meters, keep 2 kilometers distance, na immune system yako iko chini, itakuchapa.
Asante Mohammed. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir. I wish you a blessed day to all of you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Asante.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
The issue that you also raised on go get yourself tested. Then there are those that have, yes, testing is important, but testing gives you results of your situation at that point.
Yes.
And unlike HIV, where you can say, so between the last time I got tested, I haven't exposed myself directly to this virus. I have not participated in unsafe sex. I have not had, blood transfusion. I have all those things that we know you can easily avoid. This one, it is you can do as much as possible to avoid, but because you still continue to live your life, and then everybody else around you is not taking precaution, then you will get tested. You will know your status. You will make your decision, but you are not, really completely raising your chances because of everybody else around you, because of your surroundings.
This mortality that we have, we all have it. And that we will, the thing we know is that death awaits us. When is the issue here? But when you consider just the import of what we're saying, there are many people who, even if they're able to afford it, will not want to know the actual status of their health.
Yep.
They will not want to know. It's like there's this superstitious belief that if you know, then harm will be brought to bear on your head.
Or that you'll die within very
Yes,
short
so
period of time.
So you'd rather not know now.
Yeah.
It's a thing of, so once you know, if you're told you have this and the other,
Yes.
then now you need to start going for medication, and you cannot afford it, then.
Yes. You see, you're told, for
You
instance,
add another headache.
on top. When you get to a certain age, it is important for you to actually go for regular health checkups.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And the reason is because your system is aging. That's really it. But there are people who will avoid it because they actually don't want to know. And yet there are many conditions that will later cause them harm that could have been avoided or averted
If they did know.
if they knew about it early. COVID isn't any different. If the test is free and you're being asked to just go and get a checkup, it will help you because you will know. And once you know, you will be able to make what we call an informed decision.
I don't know what it is because even with this, I mean, like Eric was saying earlier, you have a situation where unless it's something that is really knocking at your door in terms of an experience, you're not really going to deal with it. Unless you know somebody who was ill or unless you know somebody who died from complications of COVID, the likelihood of you being more careful, unless you've taken that stance where you want to know what it is. If it's just nobody else who's thought about it like that, they're not going to take on these measures. But the truth remains that we do have to be careful. So what needs to be done? We've asked this question before. What needs to be done to get into the minds of people that these are things that you can do? When we say that the government should come up with other measures, what other measures should they come up with for people to be able to protect themselves? There are things that they can do, but this now is an individual responsibility to make sure that you maintain hygiene, you're wearing a mask and you're social distancing and all of this, because it is still here. And I think, if anything, it is very important to keep putting the message out there that COVID has not gone away. It's not gone. It's still here.
It's still here with us. Thank you very much for watching us on KTN Home this morning. We want to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. Join us again tomorrow, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. But this conversation continues every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Spice FM. If you're in Nairobi, it's 94.4. Mombasa, it's 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, Nyeri 90.9, and Malindi 97.7. Conversation continues. Goodbye to KTN Home. All right, so the Gold Crown lactose-free milk from New KCC that's being on sale across the country. Go to any shop in the country, just ask them for the Gold Crown lactose-free milk. And there are participating supermarkets where there's a promotion going on. If you go to any Naivas across the country, or Carrefour, or Quickmart, or Ketias, or Chandarana supermarket, you buy 1 UHT or Gold Crown value pack, then you will get 1 liter lactose-free milk for free. That is, if you buy just 1 UHT or Gold Crown value pack, you get a 1 liter lactose-free milk for free. But if you buy a carton that is 12 packets of lactose-free milk, you will get 2 extra 500 ml packets in any of these supermarkets, Naivas, Carrefour, Quickmart, Ketias, or Chandarana. But the milk is available in any shops anywhere in the country. We had asked you this morning, how do you identify the Gold Crown lactose-free milk? In what color is the packet? We have 2 winners. It comes in orange and brown pack. This is the international color for lactose-free products. Anywhere in the world you go, lactose-free products will be in orange or brown packs. So, the person who gets this, we have 2 people, and one of them is, I don't know what name this is, but let's just go with your Twitter handle, at my_soap_bubble. So, let's say my soap bubble. The packet of milk has an orange, that is a tangerine hue of orange, a background with a splash of milk in white. And that is true, this particular Gold Crown lactose-free milk has those. She says, been lactose intolerant for over 10 years. And also my soap bubble, I don't know your gender, says, been lactose intolerant for over 10 years, my niece for 2. This gift hamper will be her gift from Spice FM. She deserves it more than I do. Yes. And for that reason, we want to give your niece, not you, my soap bubble. We just want to give your niece this particular one. Congratulations. The other one who wins it this morning is Asaya Mbura, who says, here I'm taking my fresh, and they even posted a photo, taking my Gold Crown lactose-free milk, the packet that is 250 ml, and 1 liter top part is white with golden writings, and the bottom is brown with white writings plus a pink line passing through. Very descriptive, right? The sachet packet of 500 ml is brown at the top and white at the bottom with a pink line passing through. This person has actually bought that, looking at them and writing. So congratulations to you two, Esaya Mbura. You both get this very lovely hamper from New KCC. Go to any shop countrywide and you can buy the new Gold Crown lactose-free milk from New KCC. Okay. What do you want to tell people about behaving normally and abnormally as we conclude this conversation?
Well, Ngosha Gilbert says the government is overwhelmed in managing the virus. It's like the government is not sure of its strategies to curb the virus. You see the government open schools and the same government is under tension that the curve is surging. Now they are in a quandary and at the same time they are jeopardizing the lives of the young ones due to the artificial measures. Arthur Anderson, never felt like crying. I abhor the level of ignorance I see out here. If I had the means, I'd lock myself up where none of these guys would reach me. COVID-19 will teach us a bad lesson, I believe. Our culture as a country on dealing with issues is not good. Yeah.
Let's not behave normally. Let's always have it at the front of our minds, not at the back of our minds. At the front of our minds that COVID-19 is a reality everywhere in the world. COVID-19 is also a reality in this country. When you have close to, have we hit 800 yet? No. Close to 800 people who have died
Yeah,
in the
700 and
so
over
many
750.
months.
And counting.
Over 750, yeah.
Those are people who have basically lost their lives. They're no longer here with us. So let's all be careful and remember that COVID-19 is a reality. Countries in that upper side of the world and the Western Hemisphere are getting into the cold season again, and therefore now they're seeing a spike in the number of infections. They're going into proper lockdown. France has declared a state of emergency. Is it emergency? Yes. In
Yeah, and
Paris.
instituted a curfew in Paris and other towns, yes.
And other towns because of the spike in the numbers. They are also seeing the same kind of spike in numbers in other countries, neighboring countries. The UK has had the same. Boris Johnson is still juggling with the decision. Should we reclose? Should we not? What kind of impact is that going to have long term? And he was saying in the parliament the other day that if we go back into this serious lockdown, then it may have a longer term effect on what we can manage. Can we even run NHS if our economy tanks? So it's those kind of issues and conversations that you keep having in the world, right? So yes, coming to the top of the hour, City, remind us today's proverb.
Right. He who solves a problem with a problem will always have a problem waiting. He who solves a problem with a problem will always have a problem waiting.
He who does what has what?
He who solves a problem with a problem,
Has a problem waiting.
yes,
Always.
will always,
Always.
yes, ad infinitum.
All right. Our friend Roderick is calling and he's on the line. Roderick, let's pick your call immediately after this. We're coming to the top of the hour. We'll take a look at traffic and then we'll hear what Roderick has to say. And this is about the behavior of Kenyans in these times of COVID-19. What should we do? What should we not do? This conversation continues. You can call in 0719-012-600 and speak at any time when we're having conversations. Or you can text us 40127. That is 40127. Our social media handles, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Good morning. It's now 9 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice it.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM.
Okay, looking
Nairobi.
a bit better on Thika Road this morning. Trying to get into the CBD. Not too bad, guys. Seems that traffic that was seen is now at least opening up a little bit. Not yet out of the woods. Definitely not out of the woods on Mombasa Road. Still bumper-to-bumper traffic from the SGR towards the JKI turnoff. We expect to see this open up in about half an hour or so we'll keep an eye on that. Other parts still seem to have dealt with the traffic situation, gotten where they're going, so you shouldn't be stuck. Unless, of course, something does happen. Then in which case you shall let us know on 40127. That's via text. Or you shall tweet us on Spice FM KE.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the
2
only
minutes
way
after
to
now,
start your...
The conversation continues. So before we even pick up anything else, let's hear from Roderick. Good morning, Roderick.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you?
Nduh.
Yes, good morning.
Mwalimu.
Salama kaka, uko mzima?
Kabisa.
Asante.
Let me, Kenyans, we have a problem. Nduh, I don't know you understand by the name Manga.
Manga.
Tuko na umanga.
Manga ni crack.
What's that?
Crack. They will tell you.
These ones.
Kenyans have this attitude. The Kenyans have attitude problem and thinking that we know it all. But when the problem comes at home, unasema serikali saidia. The same clowns that you voted into government have the same element that you have. Ya umanga. People are campaigning all over. You're just in crowds all over. Some of them had COVID the other day at Karen hospitals, are in the middle of the crowds. But let me tell you one thing. When we realize that Kenya is the entry point for East Africa, is a gateway to East Africa, and you know the flu season and the COVID is colliding at the same point. Some of these guys will be running here because of the heat and all that. But later you ugonjwa. But now, we're just all over. We have given up. Mambo ni mambo na tumbo. But when this thing hits you, you will never again take it for granted. We are joking. I know two fellows who are close that have had this thing, and it's not funny. Some are still struggling to breathe till now.
Wow.
Yeah, so watu wakae chonjo.
Asante, Roderick. Na ni ukweli kabisa. Ni ukweli. Now, before you go, Roderick, there's the headline in most of the papers today is about a second handshake. This is a handshake between the president and his deputy. There's pressure piling. It's being said that the diplomatic community is trying to reach out to this and trying to make them come to terms with one another. What do you make of this?
I don't think it will help anything because the political situation or let's say the relation between the two guys, it's irreversible. The ship sailed long time ago.
Irreconcilable differences.
It's a irreconcilable difference. It's irreconcilable. It cannot. We have just crossed that bridge already. Yeah, now watu wajipange.
Okay.
Because both sides are pushing. If you see the DP's guys are pushing, the Uhuru side guys are pushing. There's Baba somewhere and his team they are pushing.
Yep.
And if Baba knows that if these guys come together, again he's in trouble. But again, you can see even the situation on the ground, how these guys are talking. Do you think this will sort all those mudslinging and all the insults that have been going on since last year? There's a lot of machinations that I have to deal with, and it will take time. Yeah.
Asante.
Yeah.
So as we go ahead into looking into other headlines and looking at also school and all, we can start with this one. Is this relationship really at that point that Roderick is saying?
In politics?
Irreversibly broken.
Nothing of that sort in politics. Nothing. Absolutely nothing of that sort.
People who wanted to kill themselves the day before, you will find them the following day having a cuppa together. So, I mean,
the question I would ask
take it at
is
face value.
What suits them at that particular point in time?
Yeah.
And what are they bargaining with? Because political noise usually is just that. It's bargaining. You make enough noise so that you can be called and told, please come and let us have this conversation.
In politics, there's never always. It never is.
At this one won't happen ever again.
Okay. No. So maybe not ever, but at this point in time, what is it that would make these people want to reconcile?
At this particular point in time, the question I'm asking is, what are they reconciling? Where is there really an issue?
What was the problem?
That is what I would ask. Where is this issue?
What is the issue?
Yes, what really is the issue?
The issue is the way their camps are behaving. It appears that they are not in good terms.
You see,
when you get to a point where the management committee of a party sits and discusses your deputy and comes out to say, you know what, we are recommending to the National Executive Committee to remove the deputy from his position, it shows you something.
Yes, has any action been taken?
It's in course.
It's political noise. Eric,
you know, it's what I'm trying to say is these are signs of that there's something happening.
These are
so
signs.
Yes, you're a couple, the person has not moved out of the house, you have not gone to court to file for divorce, but people can clearly see the way this relationship is. If the man or the woman is away from the house for an entire week, comes in at the end of the week and just does a change of clothes and goes, and it's clear, can the children tell that there's a problem in this marriage? Is there a problem in the marriage?
You see, they're the optics that the general public is fed, okay? And then there are the real issues. I can't even claim to understand them or know them. But there is no competition. President Uhuru will not be president after 2022, okay? Deputy President Ruto wants to be president in 2020. He has made his intentions clear. So essentially, he has entered into competition with other people who want the same seat. This is political competition. Now, our politics as it is usually consumed with a lot of words. Some of them really incendiary. Some of them just the normal political promises that mean nothing, okay, apart from the fact that they're being uttered. But what has changed in the situation that we have right now is someone who is still the deputy, taking a position that is perceived to be in complete contrast to what his boss has. Therein lies my question. Really? These are both politicians in the same party, have had similar interests until now.
So you think they're putting up a show?
I'm not taking anything at face
It's a
value.
show when Jubilee says we are not going to have a candidate because of our spirit of cooperation with ODM, and this is the person who passed on in this seat was an ODM member, will allow ODM to field its candidate, and then the deputy goes and openly
Ask yourself,
offers support
Eric,
to an independent candidate.
If you and I were in government and we have failed to keep very many promises to the people who elected us, and one of us, I am seeking election because I'm your deputy, what is in my interest? To keep the entire public of Kenya entertained with supposed differences that we have between us, or to actually let them face the harsh reality of what we haven't done? What would you do? Isn't it more interesting to listen to these supposed disagreements that people have and
to appear to be distancing yourself
completely, and then their
from
utterances
the
that
failure?
are this, and then
in a time whereby people are going to be making a decision about where you, the one who is interested in getting to that position, is heavily vested, right? And then they're going to base all of these decisions on your performance previously. You don't want them to see your failures. You don't want them to nitpick at things that you possibly failed at. You don't want them to see that you made a promise and you didn't fulfill. You don't want them to see that here is something that you should have developed and you didn't develop. How about giving, again, people something bright and shiny to look at and hold for some time while the time passes, and before you know it, they were confused and enamored with this whole fight between yourselves, which maybe didn't exist, and they didn't have time to focus on your failures. They didn't have time to focus on those promises that you made which you didn't fulfill. Sure, they may have spoken about it every now and then, but did they really focus on it? No. Did they start putting you to task? Did they demand of you certain things? No, they didn't, because you fed them this narrative that actually, you know what, mommy and daddy are fighting, so let's focus on that for now and try to repair this relationship. Before you know it, guess what? It's 2022, and you're going to have to vote again.
So what is reported now, even from yesterday, the Standard reported that religious leaders are leading the drive to reunite the once dynamic duo. We have also seen reports that the diplomatic community has had having the same talks and having to talk to the two leaders and saying, you know what, the kind of image that you're portraying to the public is not good. You guys need to show the same united front that you had before. Are they wasting their time?
Who?
Are you saying that the religious leaders, the diplomatic community, are you saying that what they are seeing is different from what they should be seeing?
I'm saying that they know something I don't. This amount of effort.
So clearly there's something that they have also seen.
There's something they've also seen, but if I were to play devil's advocate here, the religious leaders may want to paint themselves in a good light, that they are actually people who are concerned about their flock, who form what we call the constituency of this country.
And they want to keep the moral heart of the society beating to its maximum potential. So let's also throw in and wade into this conversation.
Exactly.
We can't be seen to be quiet. We also must be called upon
Take
to
a moral
we're
high
active
ground.
Participants in this conversation and this discourse.
We're not
It is
letting this
necessary.
thing go left.
But they wouldn't be doing that if there was nothing to really react to.
Okay, what is this problem then, really?
They would not be the ones who are creating the narrative. They're actually latching onto a narrative that is already there.
Yes, and
onto
what
an
is the
image that is already there?
What is the problem, Eric? What really is this problem? Is it kumi yangu, kumi yako problem? This is politics. Okay?
Yes.
And why?
And the effect that is having.
The thing is this, that's
when the deputy and his boss are not appearing to work in tandem, what is the political ramification of that?
No. Are we saying that from day one these people are working in tandem? I would say from day one they appeared to be working in tandem. What we're seeing now is what was there previously, but it's now just being manifest, if indeed there is a real problem. Look, these are seasoned political players, all right? There's no one here who's a neophyte. There's no one here who's just suddenly come into this game and doesn't know what means what. If the differences were as real as people say they are, and the claims that the deputy president is the demon he's been painted to be, you actually think that no action would have been taken by now. It would have been taken.
Possible to think the fellow would have been gotten rid of a long time ago.
Yes, the very least the fellow would have been in court.
No?
Define rid of?
Outside.
Outside
office.
as in removed from office.
From office.
Yes, that's what she means.
Uh-huh.
Eric, there are very many things the sitting president can do. There are very many powers that, even with the limited powers that our constitution gives the president, that the president still can do. All right? This dynamic duo may not appear to be as dynamic as they were before. I am arguing that they have a new dynamism. It is more important right now if you portray some division between you. It makes for more interesting politics. It makes
so
for
it's a
better
script
discussion.
that they've sat down and agreed on.
I'm saying it is possible that it is a script.
What if they came out and said, you know what, we're presenting ourselves again and we've come out and we've had the conversation and we feel as though it was time for us to reunite upon a perceived notion that they had actually been at loggerheads? What do you think? Do you think it will throw the country into any particular tailspin? Do you think anything will change magnificently so? Okay, so now they've decided they're holding hands once again and they're going to finish this race properly, and then whatever happens after that will happen. It can happen, and then what? This problem that people thought that they were adding to, the church comes in and lends its voice and says, actually, we feel that. What do you think they would be saying at that point? If they come and actually say, you know what, we're fine now. Everything is okay. All this mushrooming of opinions and people saying different things and how we feel that it should, what do you think they would be? Even those who took sides within the same party, for example, even those who took sides, if they came out and said, actually, you know what, everything is okay, there's no problem, how do you think they would look?
Let's throw open this question then. 0719-012-600 or Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Are there differences that require reconciling between the president and his deputy? Or are we just being taken for a ride? Are there differences that require reconciling? Because the news right now is that there are attempts at reconciling the two. Religious leaders on the one hand, the diplomatic community, some diplomats also piling pressure, according to The Nation. What's the headline again in The Nation? Pressure piling?
Pressure, envoys pile pressure on Uhuru and Ruto.
Yep. Envoys pile pressure on Uhuru and Ruto. And then now the one in the Standard says, there's no handshake for you, Raila allies tell Ruto. So it appears now we have even brought in the Raila allies into this whole conversation. Are there differences that require reconciling between President Uhuru Kenyatta, Deputy President William Ruto, or are we just being taken for a ride? Let's take a look at the weather when we open up the phone lines.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your Spice FM. Njeri.
20 degrees and partly cloudy in Nairobi, mostly cloudy in some parts. Highs of 27 and lows of 14 today. In Njeri, it's going to be a sunny afternoon, currently at 19 degrees, going to highs of 26 and lows of 13. Partly cloudy conditions in Nakuru at 18, highs of 26 and lows of 12. Let's take a look into Eldoret, where it's mostly cloudy at 17, highs of 22 with a chance of rains coming in right around noon. Looks like partly cloudy conditions only in Kisumu today, currently at 23 degrees, going to a high of 28 and down to lows of 18. In Kakamega, it's partly cloudy at 20, highs of 26 with a chance of showers in the afternoon. And looking at highs of 29 in Mombasa, currently mostly cloudy conditions at 28. It's looking like rain in Malindi later on, highs of 29 and lows of 25. Outside of the country into Kampala, it's partly cloudy at 21. Thunderstorms expected later with highs of 25 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam will continue with the rains today. Thunderstorms is what is in the forecast. Highs of 28 and lows of 23. In Johannesburg, it's mostly sunny this morning, and those sunny conditions will last throughout the day, going to a warm high of 27. Thunderstorms continue in Lagos at 29. That's been a high today with lows of 23. Getting to early evening in Beijing, past early evening actually, it's mostly sunny still. They'll see highs of 19 and lows of 9. Looking into London, and it's clear skies at 8 degrees, but it'll change later with rainy conditions with highs of 13 and lows of 7. Paris is mostly cloudy at 8 degrees, highs of 13 and lows of 7. And we'll wrap things up in New York, where it's now Thursday morning. Clear skies at 16 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 15.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
18 minutes after 9. The question you're asking is, are there real differences between President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto that require reconciliation? You're seeing reports of efforts at reconciling them. Religious leaders on the one hand, envoys on the other. People like Roderick say, you know what, this thing is done and dusted. One of the partners has said talaka 4 times, it's done. There's no point of even there are differences, and those differences are what we call irrevertible. Then there are people like Modehu Nyange, who posts a comment and says, a game well choreographed and executed with the blessings of State House. I still believe that Uhuru and Ruto are one and the same thing. They meet in the evening and do a summary of what has been achieved during the day and what should be done the next day. Uhuru is mandated to make sure that by 2022, Ruto will have metamorphosed into a martyr or a victim that will almost be impossible to defeat, courtesy of State House planned propaganda and violence. Sudi, Murathe, Murkomen, Sabina are just tools of trade. Atwoli is a free loudspeaker, a Wi-Fi hoteli, where any Dick, John and Harry can connect to. Raila, meanwhile, knows what's going on, but shrewd as he is, he pretends that he knows nothing and plays to the gallery in order to reap as much possible, that is in terms of state trappings and other material benefits. As an ordinary mwananchi, though, be cautious not to be found in the mix. Sacrificing some few ignorant and gullible citizens is no big deal for these men and women.
Wow. Well, how's that for another side of
Perspectives, right? Perspectives.
You know, if you want to look at one example, the case of Governor Obado of Migori, the words we heard regarding him from the party, the ODM party headquarters, anyone listening would have said, this guy's out. Story finished. Again, the word dusted. Now, let me read what we're hearing now. Okay? Let's start with the chairman. It is true, we have invited him to the party headquarters tomorrow, which is today, and we will discuss a lot of things, including reconciliation. Let us read what the Secretary General has said. Last weekend, the governor reached out to the party saying it was possible for him to address our concerns regarding service delivery to the people of Migori. We have acceded to his request and want to hear his plans. Now, the top-bottom approach that Dr. Charles Muga talked about with regards to epidemiology. Every time we've heard of a situation where a governor is facing impeachment, it is the county assembly who have raised the issue and escalated it.
Yep.
This is one rare situation where we had the party on whose ticket this gentleman got that seat, raising the issue about wanting him impeached. That particular song has changed. It's a different a strong.
It's a whole new orchestra.
The players haven't changed.
Same players.
Same players. Migori hasn't moved from where it was. Now, this is a political situation. Learn from it. And ask yourself, what really was the problem here?
Yeah, well, there are differences really.
In the first
What
place.
really was the
Or
problem
are
here?
the difference is still there, but they are adapting to the reality
And why are they adapting?
because of the reality.
Yes, and what is the reality? You see, these are the questions you want to ask.
That despite my differences, I really cannot do anything to you.
Yes. Now, at the national level, you want to ask this particular question. People who've worked well for the last 7 years, seemingly so, suddenly in the last, what?
For 5 years worked well, for 4 years worked well, for 2 years then they
Then
appear not
suddenly,
to be.
suddenly,
Yes.
suddenly.
There was a problem.
And there's a big one. And then suddenly you're being told that this handshake that was there between the former prime minister and the president is what has caused the problem. Really? Really?
Let's hear from Hezekiah, who's calling in from Kisumu. Good morning, Hezekiah.
Good morning. How are you?
Very
Well,
fine,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Okay, I just want to contribute on the whatever is going on
Yep.
about the handshake and whatever the disagreement
The
between the
differences.
president and the deputy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what I know kulingana na siasa. Siasa ikifika imefika, ikifika mwisho imefika. It's like kulikuwa na handshake, kulikuwa na agreement katikati ya Uhuru na deputy wake. Sasa baadaye ikafika mwisho. Saizi hakuna kitu inaweza tendeka because when handshake between Uhuru and Raila happened, Uhuru alikuwa na interest because what I know, those international community and whatever the religious community were trying to do is something impossible because at the moment nothing can happen. You know, what could have been worrying is between the friction between Raila and Uhuru, not Ruto, because Raila has the impact. Kama kungekuwa na handshake, watu wangapi wangekuwa wamekufa saizi? Hata hao international community wangekuwa worried. Kwa saizi mambo ya the friction between Uhuru and Ruto is very small. But what about kama ingekuwa ni ya Raila na Uhuru? What could have happened? Hii Kenya tungekuwa tunaendelea na kazi kawaida kweli? Na to mix na hii mambo ya COVID-19. Sasa tuangalie hii mambo vile tunaweza endelea mbele because ile imemwagika haiwezi kulingana na body language and whatever is happening. Haizoleki.
So you think this is done?
Hiyo ni kupoteza wakati. Yeah, that is done.
Ndoa imevunjika.
Kama ingekuwa ni Raila na Uhuru saizi, mimi ningekuwa hata saizi singekuwa natembea. But Uhuru na Ruto saizi natembea, nafanya vitu zangu za kawaida. COVID-19 inakuja tunaendelea, lakini ingekuwa mix na Raila na Uhuru. Let's go. That thing is done.
Okay.
Hiyo ni kupoteza wakati.
Thank you, Hezekiah.
Okay, thank you.
0719-012-600. Are there real differences between the president and his deputy that require reconciliation? Or is this just a political script? We'd like to hear what you think. 0719-012-600. SMS 40127. Why are you shaking your head?
I don't...
What is it?
No, because I'm thinking about the people who've been so emotionally vested in this and then took their relevance, and their relevance was found based on this supposed argument between these two gentlemen.
Yep.
That everything that they did going forward, alliances that were formed because of this, statements that they put out into the public, again, because of this, positions then that were created for themselves before people who were going to vote for them because of this argument. And then just the realization that if they could come out and say, actually, no, we're fine. We're all right. Here you are. And you've already dictated the position in which your political career will go thereafter. It will be quite a disappointing
It
moment.
has moved
don't
you
you
from
think?
one point to the next. That's what matters to a politician. How far am I now? Fine. Let's work with the next. Patrick in Vihiga, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Are there differences between the two leaders?
Before I answer that question, well, let me go straight to the point. There are differences. But these differences can be solved by the two leaders themselves. What I would like to say and inform Kenyans is that history is repeating itself 40 years ago. You remember in 1976, 1977, there was clamor for change of constitution led by the late MP Nakuru Kihika Kimani. it was that the constitution should be amended to allow, not to allow Moi to succeed Kenyatta. Interestingly, Moi never answered, Moi never responded, and Kenyatta kept quiet about it. In contrast, when the likes of Atoli and Murade said that they don't know who will become the president in 2022, but they know one man will not become the president.
Yeah.
You can imagine how does the one in office now be take that to be? The president has never questioned the architects of this. He has never commented on it. He has kept quiet. So what should the deputy president do? I think what should happen. The president has demanded to observe the constitution because he took an oath.
Yeah.
And to shake off the hardliners. It is him and his deputy who have the mandate to run this country, create peace, create an enabling environment for now and for prosperity. Then he call a national conference like the one Moi had in 1981, and the one Moi had with Nyachai as finance minister. I can't remember the year when the economy was dwindling. That one can shake off all these things and the country will move, because the president is having so many problems. Yes, COVID pandemic, the economy is dwindling. We have a looming dissolution of parliament.
Yeah.
There is poverty raging, poverty affecting many Kenyans.
So there's too
so
much for
many
him to deal
problems.
with.
All these things.
That's
So the best thing, just to call a national conference and discuss economy. And then all these things will be forgotten.
Asante.
And for your information,
Yeah.
Raila is not the president of this country. So when people say they don't want a handshake between Ruto and Raila, there is mischief in that. Because they believe if there is a handshake between the deputy president and the president, then these other guys will fall out.
Okay.
Which is not true.
Asante sana, Patrick.
Kenya should come first. Yes.
Thank you. 0719-012-600 or 40127 on SMS or Spice FMKE on Facebook, on Twitter, or on Instagram. Some of the comments that have come out of this from the leaders, top-level leaders in all the factions. We have Kipchumba Murkomen, who's an ally of the Deputy President. He says, forget the truce. What we are asking is simple. Respect the DP and restore his duties. Ask the juniors to behave with decorum. Political handshake is not our priority now. Then there's Minor Commander, who says the Ruto group is trying to use the truce talks to slow down our support for Raila. We cannot be distracted with the way Ruto is disrespecting the president, who wants to associate with him. ODM Chairman John Badi says there is no two ways about it. The person leading the reconciliation talks should either tell Uhuru to abandon his peace and unity agenda or tell Ruto to stop early campaigns. David Murathe, the vice chairman of Jubilee, says kindly disregard their propaganda. The president is busy serving the nation, and those claiming that there is a planned truce are talking to themselves. Are there differences? Are there no differences? Are we just being treated to some drama by people who are seeking drama?
Let me read a comment here. When a meal has poisoned the guests, each cook blames the other and invites the guests to their own individually fresh cooked meal for sustenance.
Say again?
When a meal has poisoned the guests, each cook blames the other and invites the guests to their individually freshly cooked meal for sustenance.
So they say, you come, wachana na hiyo, huyu aliharibu. I've made another meal here separately.
Said the spider to the fly.
Won't you come into mine? Said the spider to the fly. Yes. Remember, we are talking about politicians, and we are talking about understanding how politicians function and how to interpret their actions. When a politician says this is wrong, does it mean that what he is stating as wrong is actually wrong, or is he drawing attention to himself by simply stating something that was patently obvious? Okay? Or is he pointing to something that everybody seems to think is the complete opposite? In so doing, then drawing attention to himself.
For me, the end goal, for any end goal is always for the politician to draw that particular attention to him or herself. We'll use whatever means necessary to do so. To tell you that something that is obvious to all of you, just to say it again, but at the end of the day, what are you looking at? Me. To tell you something that you may never have thought of, but then I'm bringing it in there. At the end of the day, who brought it? Me. So it's still that you're looking at me at the end of it. And I would say that's the goal of any politician at any point in time.
28 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let's take a break, see what's happening on the roads, and then we come back and pick your calls, 0719-012-600 or SMS 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
It's looking much better. I think we're officially out of traffic hour. Still some dregs of that on Mombasa Road. Trying to get into the CBD, still slow because of the construction at those points. But early morning traffic seems to have dwindled. It's also looking better on Thika Road as you're getting into the CBD. Uhuru Highway is where we're going to see some of this still. Moving along very slowly between the Nyayo Stadium roundabouts and then heading all the way through into Westlands through the CBD. So that's where you'll see the problems. But for now, in most other parts, it looks good. If it does go Ori, let us know. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Or text us on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice. Spice FM.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
26 minutes to 10. The conversation continues. David Ogola, too, says, the problem is simple. The president is unhappy with his deputy because he's busy campaigning instead of driving the agenda. The deputy is not happy with the president because he reconciled with Raila, whom he feels is his greatest threat. So, Dave, so are there differences, or are there no, or is just a matter of one is unhappy, one is the other is unhappy? So does that actually mean that then that there are differences? I think if we just get to it, whatever form or shape they have presented it, they have presented that there are differences, and they act out like there are differences. They act out in a way that clearly shows that there are differences. When there's a purge, and the purge is the people who support the deputy are the ones who are sidelined from key positions in the leadership of the assembly and the leadership of the party, even creating a new organ in the party called the National Management Committee that does not have anybody who is a known and vocal supporter of the deputy. Whether they are playing it out, whether they want to just to play a script, there's a difference.
You're referring to political realignment, isn't it? But that happens all the time. It is what other people may refer to as a disciplinary action. Within party organs, people jostle for power. And jostling for power doesn't mean that people have a difference. No. And sometimes, even within parties, the party leaders and the top organ, the people who actually have the final say, sit back and let those who are supposedly aligned to them have their say, and they sit back and watch how far this thing goes. Yes.
So you just watch them as you watch your juniors as they fight and squabble.
Yes.
For entertainment.
Yes. No, not for entertainment. Let's just see who comes on top.
Let's see how this is going to play
Let's see
out.
who comes on top of this one, because it won't affect your position.
Yeah.
And you know that for a fact.
Yeah.
So if others want to jostle, let them jostle. You may have a very clear idea of what you want, but since you want, people believe that each one thinks that they're close to you and each one thinks that they have your ear, let them jostle for power. Let them try and sort each other out.
Richard Hosea in Kisumu. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yes. My contribution. Honestly, I don't think that there is a conflict between Uhuru and Ruto. Because you see, according to there's a book I read, 16 Principles of Psychological Power. What Uhuru is trying to, I think what Uhuru and Ruto are trying to do, like law number 16 says, use calculated value. Now, in calculated value, it states that sometimes for you to achieve some of the greater powers, unafaa unatumia zile instruments that unajua they'll bring this power. So ukiangalia hii conflict ya yenye people think iko between Uhuru and Ruto, I believe Uhuru wants to assist Ruto to be president in 2022. And the only way anawezaitumia ni kuuse Raila, who he knows akona value. Yenye anajua tu vizuri that aki create conflict between.
All right, I think we've lost him. We've lost Richard. But let's go to Eldoret. Ericana in Eldoret. Good morning.
Yes, I was saying this.
Yes.
Kuna tofauti kwa sababu unaona like recently Uhuru wanted to France kutafuta finance ya kunini loan.
Yeah.
Juu unajua donors wanaona kuna tofauti kati ya president na deputy wake, sasa wanaona kuna instability. Of course waliokei hiyo loan, lakini ikuje baada ya Uhuru kumaliza nini. Si inamaanisha kuna tofauti. Sasa hata kama wengine wanasema hakuna haja au kilaji kupatanisha watu wawili, it is more important rais na deputy wake wapatanishwe. Ndio hata kama ni investors wataona kweli kuna political stability kwa nje, lakini kama watu wawili wanaenda sideways, Kenya tuko na shida.
Tunaumia.
Thank
you, Ericana. Geoffrey in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning, Spice FM. How are you?
We're fine,
Very well, thank you.
Well, I think there's no difference between president and his deputy, because the deputy has been on record even praising the president and showing that he's indeed working with him. So whatever that is happening is just history repeating itself. You remember very well there was a time when we had New Kanu.
Yep.
Who was accommodated in this New Kanu? And was he really meant for a change that was for the Kenyans, or they had vested interest? Did it hold water? It never held water. Now we have the same thing happening in Jubilee. It's not going to hold water. What is there is Ruto has proved himself to be one man who is not going to budge it up. So he must be rocked. But at the end of the day, the truth is going to surface. The president is in total support of Ruto.
100%.
Yes, I believe that.
Thank you, Geoffrey. Thank you. Do you agree with Geoffrey? 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Do you think there are any real differences between the president and his deputy? Or is this just a mere political script that's being played?
Could be anything. But at the end of the day, what you are saying is that people need to be ready. It's like the second coming. You don't know the time, you don't know the hour. Two women tilling in a field. One could be taken, one would be left. Anything could happen. Any day, they could come and tell you, actually, you know what, this is how it looks. And you have to be ready to just go along with the times. Because what are you going to do? What are you going to do? No. Everything that I have said, everything that I have done previously was based on the fact that the both of you were arguing. And then now you're coming to tell us that you're not arguing. What am I supposed to do? Is that what you're going to say? No. You're going to have to go along with it.
We already have lessons from that. I mean, look, the people who are supporters of Raila Odinga, the people who are supporters of Uhuru Kenyatta, buddies. It doesn't matter what Minor Commander was saying in December 2017. He now speaks a very different script.
But it doesn't mean that he didn't suck on sour grapes. He never showed you, but at some point he would have been like, oh my goodness, hold. In his quiet quarters, and I said, come on, what are these guys doing? everything
He's
that
a
I had
politician.
planned.
What he looked
I'm
at
not gonna
was
show you.
so this is where the wind is. This is where the wind is blowing. All right,
Let's go. Drop it all and go along with it.
Follow the wind.
You know the Kano meeting that was held in 1981 that was referred to by one of our callers. I keep referring to it because it is, for me, it was the hallelujah and amen moment which opened my eyes to politics, really. Whoever referred to President Moi as a professor of politics knew exactly what they were talking about. Here is a conference, all right? Among the things they want to discuss, in fact, the reason why the conference has been called is to discuss multipartyism. Speaker after speaker after speaker after speaker.
Glorious renditions.
They condemned multipartyism, the problems it will cause, the blah, 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 and the blah, blah, blah. It was actually interesting to listen to. Then, the president always spoke last. The president stands up to speak, does his bit, and says, you know, folks, the way I see it, let's just allow this multipartyism.
The guy is kind of a comedian, don't you think? He allowed all these guys to talk.
He understood them very well, listened.
And like we were told by the man who was a comptroller of State House then, Franklin Bett, the president had already made up his mind. He had told him, you know what?
This
put it in that speech and don't tell anyone. Put it in the speech.
And allowed all of them to talk.
We are going to repeal Section 2A.
Yes. He knew. He had understood it.
It wasn't that the president looked and then felt picky ponky.
No. Donkey. Donkey died.
Father cried.
No. He knew exactly what he was doing. Now, that's a consummate politician. But what was fascinating about this is when he said, folks, you know, let's allow multipartyism to come into being. Goodness gracious me. The agility of the politician came into full display. They're clapping the cheer, but there was a pin drop silence for some 2 seconds. And then cheers and yes and this. Now, you must remember every time you're discussing politicians that don't look at the person. Please look at the fact that this is a politician. And politicians, when it comes to the way they think and the things they say, they don't inhabit the same space as us. Even you, should you become a politician, believe me, you can say the very same things that we're used to you saying, but they'll mean something completely different simply because you're a politician. Yes.
Some of the comments coming in, you can read this one by Joseph Kalukalu.
Okay, so Joseph says, there are no real issues to be reconciled between the two except for Raila to stop interfering with the two and concentrate on building ODM. Otherwise, Raila will be time-barred in 2022 race to State House. Who knows Uhuru and Ruto are playing him? Who knows Uhuru and Ruto are playing him to achieve what he promised the people? I really feel Raila has no vision because he specializes in spoiling the visions of others.
Hey.
Okay.
Augustus Kiptalam. Athletes miscalculate at times by staying behind. Meanwhile, opponents gain more than expected. If this is a trick by Huruto, then Raila, Gideon gaining more ground.
It's an interesting perspective.
So then the others are actually gaining by whatever game you guys are playing. You have miscalculated. It's going to play to the benefit of your opponents come 2022.
These are politicians. And remember, these are politicians in a country that is perhaps one of the most politicized countries in the country. I mean, the world.
The world, yeah.
So all these citizens that you see here are themselves politicians. And they listen, and they hear, and they read, and they give you the impression they are with you. Then come the day of elections, and you get the shock of your life. So, these are the realities of our politics. Do you really think all these people whom we see presenting themselves for elections present themselves because they're stupid? No, they're not. They are intelligent people who have thought and have seen the evidence and are convinced. The little detail that is forgotten is
that they could...
Yes, yes. What they may forget is that the politician who is not a citizen may have presented these things for him to consume. knowing full well, like President Moi, what they actually want
What
to
they
do.
actually want to
In
do.
the very
yes.
end.
Yes. But for purposes of this political competition or game, this is what they present to you. So the games can continue.
13 minutes to 10 o'clock. Time for a break.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
In the face of COVID-19, life has been adversely affected, with nearly all schools in Kenya lacking basic hand-washing facilities, affecting more than 19 million children. Together with Davis and Shatliff and True Black, we, the Standard Group, have partnered to collectively unite other corporates and individuals to join the initiative towards setting up basic sanitation facilities around the country. For more information, send an SMS to the short code 40616 or email standwithkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Time to come together for tomorrow. It's our future. A partnership by Davis and Shatliff and True Black and the Standard Group.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice. Spice it.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right,
Mornings
that's 11
done.
minutes to 10. Then if indeed we say that, maybe there are no real differences between the president and his deputy, then they have fooled very many people. Because by the time then you're saying that even the international community, with all the access to their own intelligence and political intelligence as well in the country, the religious leaders and what they see, and everybody else who is thinking that there's a difference, if everybody has bought this script, then they would be doing a very good job. You want to give them that much credit?
I do. I actually do. Consider
For the
instance-
first time, you've given the politicians credit.
I do. It's a tongue-in-cheek sort of credit. Think, for instance, you have a situation where you're always being told that your interest is being looked into, or your interest is looked after. And yet, if you look at what would constitute the basics that a Kenyan should enjoy according to the rights that are enshrined in the Constitution, tell me which one of them. Let's talk about, say, for instance, access to healthcare. Is it really available? But you'll be told it's available. As in, the buildings may exist, there may be health workers, but can you actually attain that which is actually due to you? The answer is no, not really. Okay? If you are told that you have a right to actually, yes, you have a right to, should we say, freedom from, should we call it hunger? Freedom of assembly? All these things that you are told are freedoms that you have. You think you can actually enjoy them to the full. What am I trying to say? By the time somebody has convinced you that the very thing you don't have, you actually have, don't you think that person is really very good at what they do?
Right.
They are really very good at what they do. Here we are fighting for your cause. And in so telling you this, and if you believe it, then you forget everything else that had happened. You forget that, one, the laws that are passed with the greatest speed have issues that have to do with them.
Their benefits.
That you won't remember.
No.
these are accomplished people. These are people who know how to ply their trade well. What they are about to experience in 2022 is when their expertise collides with the expertise of the voter, because the voter has also been fine-tuning his expertise. Yes. And they're beginning to understand more and more that this vote doesn't have to do with what this person tells me. I have to decide whom and why I want to vote.
Mine is different.
Mine is different. You keep seeing signs of it in certain places and you think, well, it's a one-off, it's a flash in the pan. It isn't a flash in the pan. Everything that has taken root often begins as a flash in the pan. And if it resonates sufficiently with people, then it becomes the reality. Right now, what we're seeing, which you consider to be the reality, in my opinion, is what in 2022 will become illusionary. But
looking back, you would say, this is not what I expected at all.
Yes.
Based on everything that was playing out at that moment, you thought that things were going to now, unfurl differently. But then it's when you'll be able to look back and say, actually, you know what, it's a far cry from what the situation on the ground was at the moment. And for those who would not align, for those who want to be in those political spaces right now, close to the seat of power, then it would be wise for them to look at this also through that screen, that, you know what, none of these behaviors that you're seeing right now are grounded in stone. It's not lockdown. It's not the everlasting reality. It may not even be the reality. So anybody who's being caught up in this whirlwind without realizing, or this dragnet, without really realizing what the end goal is, you're just as in the dark as everybody else, especially if you're a politician who wants to be in those inner circles. You might just be as fooled as everybody else.
Mutende wa Weso says Raila amechezwa. Ashajazwa uji kwenye bakuli, amenyamaza. Now the game is being played. It's just he has been played in an amateurish chess game and he fell for it. And Emiati says, this is all about self-interest. Our producer John has been whispering in my ear and giving this analogy of two friends who at one point decided they'd like to know who really are their friends as friends. So they come up with this, they hatch a scheme to make it appear to their friends that they have fallen apart. And then now each individual will have, but even Nduh, by the way Nduh has been talking about you. She's been telling me this and this and this and the other about you. So you start getting to know, so this is what you guys actually think about us. This is what you guys think about me. So you get to know who your true friends really are by, hey, but John, you kind of friends, man.
Who do you hang out with?
Why do you go to such great lengths just to find out who likes you? It's too much.
Yeah, those are people with serious self-esteem issues.
Dave Ogola is asking another question. He says, why is this conversation about reconciliation between the president and the DP coming on the eve of unleashing the BBI report? Food for thought. Because it's true. I mean, this whole now narrative has just started. It started with, there could be attempts at reconciling these two leaders. Now it's headlines of there's a reconciliation attempt between these two leaders and it's gaining momentum. Why? Why now? Why? So if there's a reconciliation, why now?
Right, and everything before this.
What's the wisdom between choosing now? I mean, why didn't you do it last week?
Everything before this has been that the fight has been hot, right? There have been so many things to the point whereby, censure motion, the DP to be thrown out of the party, etc., etc. It's been hot. Before that, putting errant leaders of the Tanga Tanga squad in line and getting you guys to behave in a certain manner. It's been hot ever since. And then suddenly, things cool off.
In fact, just even before we even move into the issue of removing him from party leadership, there's reconciliation.
Now we're okay.
Okay, so now what does that mean? Are we kicking this guy out or are we not? So what are you saying?
Now imagine if you're the one, you're taking a particular position.
That's what I'm saying, CT. You're everything. They said, in fact, there's a tsunami coming. So what did you do? You packed up your house. You even moved the house.
That's why they're still retaining
and you moved to a different part of the country.
That's why they're still retaining
the house. Then they come and tell you, actually, there's no tsunami. And you moved on the word of one guy.
You had already booked that office. That deputy party leader office.
That's what I've been saying. So you made these moves. You said things in public. You went about touting that, in fact, because of this rift, this is what we're going to do. This is the hardline stance and position that I have taken. And then they come and tell you, Omo, see, it's not like that.
And then
Actually,
you asked, but you said yes,
Yes.
that's what we said.
However,
But now
Then-
we're called by
but
Bishop so and so.
now-
Oh, given
but I
this
have
and
done
this.
A, B, C, D. Well,
Yes.
sorry.
What did you think?
You actually thought there was something wrong.
Oh, and this movement, who asked you to move? Suddenly realize, goodness.
Then you ask the question, but why didn't you tell me when I was saying all these things and making all these movements and forming all these alliances thereafter, positioning my... Why didn't you tell me?
No, they will not. They'll not talk to you
By
like
the
that.
way-
They will tell you it is the bishop.
And
It is the bishop who called us.
And said we should reconcile.
Yeah.
It's a man of
I
God.
actually saw
It's a
that
man
it
of
was a
God.
good thing to do.
And then you saw the EU envoys. You know, now we just came from France. And
then we went to the
Yeah,
UK.
and then we went to the UK. So the EU envoys, I mean, the European leaders, they called us. So
Had no choice.
my
man.
hands are tied, man. My
If
hands
it
are
was
tied.
just me,
You'd be in that office now.
And if you are actually unaware, it could actually be your making and your problem. So, but even you, surely.
how could you just move? Somebody says something, you jump.
Yeah,
Huh?
how did
What's
you
wrong
expect?
with you?
You know, I used to take you seriously.
And then, what kind of a politician are you? Somebody says something, you just move like that.
But you're the one who told me. I said, you believe everything I tell you.
Okay. CT, today's proverb.
He who solves a problem with a problem will always have a problem waiting.
There's a problem in Jubilee, Tanga, Jubilee, Keleweke. You want to kick out the deputy party, you have a problem.
So you want to, what problem do you bring about to solve this problem? That those would argue, you bring in the handshake.
It's another problem.
Yes. And then you'll also have a problem waiting. The truth of the matter is, if you want to apply this saying to a political scenario,
Yep.
in politics, the problem is only a problem when it is a problem. Otherwise, it is not a problem.
It's not a problem.
Yes.
Problems are not problems unless they're problems.
Yes.
Okay.
Boniface Mwangi, this man who wanted to be president he wanted to be MP, in the last election. There's a movie that's premiering tomorrow at the Prestige in Nairobi. It's called Softie, enchanting life and times of the photographer turned politician who's chronicling his fight from the fringe, shaping political discourse over the past decade. We'll be having a conversation with Boniface Mwangi tomorrow to question him about his thinking, asking exactly what are you telling us, what you really are thinking, or are you just also playing with us? Are you in this for the money, or are you in this for somebody else's money?
Well, all right then.
So join us tomorrow from 6 a.m. to 10 o'clock for more conversations. Now, until then, is an interrupted music, and then money comes to take you home, and then the adults come to keep you company in the night.
room.
Good morning. It's 10 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice it.
Spice up your life